I would like to reconvene the meeting and call this meeting to order for the City Council meeting of January 15th, 2019. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Moats. Councilmember Soto.
Here.
Councilmember Waterfield.
Here.
Madam Mayor Patino.
Here. Interim City Attorney, Mr. Cinco, could you please give the closed session report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. There was no reportable action, but the council was unable to complete the closed session agenda, and so after the meeting, it will take up where it left off.
Thank you. Our first order of business is a presentation of the 2019 class of Hometown Heroes. Mr. Posada, could you please make the presentation?
How are you? Good evening, Mayor. Excuse me, my voice is a little under the weather. Thank you very much, Mayor and members of the City Council, for allowing us to present the Hometown Heroes again. This will be our, I guess this would be the winter class for 2019. We have a great group of people. Thank you all for coming out and supporting our veterans. So what we like to do is invite Carl Holmquist, the commander of Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 2521, to join us here at the podium. And Dennis Smitherman, our management analyst, will be assisting them in handing out the awards. And also Richard Noriega, the commander of American Legion Post, which is located here at the Veterans Memorial Building. Thank you. This program has just taken off. Every class has grown, and we're very happy to be able to recognize the vets that have served from Santa Maria and those who have made Santa Maria their hometown, maybe even after their service. So what I would like to do is run through the list of veterans, and then we'll ask them to come up and receive their certificate. The banner with their picture will be raised up on excuse me, on College Drive in the Bradley Square development. Thank you. So first off, I'd like to ask for Gary Ruskoff to come up. Let's see here. Gary is a veteran of the United States Navy and is nominated by his children, Brenda Ariano and Gary Ruskoff Jr. Next, I'd like to invite Ignacio G. Andrade Jr., the United States Marine Corps. He was nominated by his sister, Marguerite Ann Andrade Coloma. Just stay standing up, please. Just stay standing up. Thank you, Mayor. Former Mayor. I'm getting direction here from Mayor Lavanino, so.
I saw him there behind you. He's trying to hide.
Thank you very much. Next, I would like to recognize Robert Mettower, U.S. Navy, and he is nominated by his friend James Pate. Next, representing the United States Army, George Bedford Jr. Mr. Bedford was nominated by his granddaughter, Cassandra Cancia. Next up is Dean Upchurch, United States Navy. He was nominated by his granddaughter, Kristen Badnell. And next we have William D. Maidment, U.S. Navy, and he was nominated by his wife, Andrea Maidment. Next, we have Vernon Earl Graham, U.S. Navy, nominated by his friend Jerry Seamus. Next up, we have John L. Silva Jr., U.S. Army, nominated by his son, John T. Silva. Next, again from the U.S. Army, Henry J. Gomes, nominated by his daughter, Diana Reed. Harold Marsh, U.S. Navy, nominated by his daughter, Melanie Wildrich. Is that right? Robert W. Aldridge, U.S. Army. He was nominated by his wife, Sharon Aldridge. Also representing the U.S. Army is Marshall N. Braden, nominated by friend Richard Tilley. Last, representing the United States Navy, Lawrence J. Lavanino, nominated by his son, Steve. So we want to thank everyone who has sponsored their veteran. We know that some of our vets, this is a posthumous recognition, but we want to thank the families for taking the time to get their family member recognized. We also want to thank the VFW, the American Legion, the Elks Lodge, and other organizations that have stepped up to sponsor members of their organization and recognize their service to the country. So as a reminder, it's $250 for a banner to be placed. It's up for 6 months. We'll be working on our summer class of 2019 honorees. So if any of you have individuals, please contact the Recreation and Parks Department. We would be more than happy to get a banner up for your veteran. Mayor, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Posada.
Mr.
Ms.
Posada,
Barfield.
I have a question. So how
Thank you.
long will these banners hang, from 1 month to
They're up for 6 months total.
starting when?
They'll start in January.
Okay,
and they'll be up until June, and then the new class will begin in July.
Okay.
The banners are available for the families afterwards. We have had a few damaged in the wind, and we've been replacing those. So,
Perfect.
yeah, it's a gift to the family after that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I?
Yes.
Mr. Stadnick.
Mike Stadnick, Santa Maria Valley Veterans Honor Guard. I just want to mention
Oh.
that
Mr. Samnick, can you talk into the mic, please? We want to be sure we record everything you say.
Mike Stadnick, Santa Maria Valley Veterans Honor Guard. And I just want to make a point of note that this plaque here is for Corporal Marshall N. Braden. He is he is a World War I, killed in action. He rests in France. So this here is at the Maldonado Center. We have the Veterans Plaza. So I'm encouraging all of you, if you get the opportunity, just go down the street here and look at the names of the 113 veterans that gave their lives service of their country. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
And I'd like to say thank you to all the men and women who have given their time and the service to their country and their families, because it's not just them, it's their entire families that are affected by all of this. Thank you very much for being here. And you're all welcome to stay for the entire meeting. Yes.
So when we do Jim and Teresa, I'm going to talk after both of them.
Okay,
I
great.
mean, not after both of them.
After each one, separately.
No, together.
Together, oh, okay.
At the end.
Okay, great. Okay, we're just waiting to clear out the room, and then we'll continue with the agenda. The next order of business is a retirement resolution, and I will be making the presentation. She's back there. She waved. Okay. This is a resolution recognizing Teresa Rayburn quiet in the back. Whereas Teresa Rayburn began her service to the residents of the city of Santa Maria on May 9th, 1979 as a recreation leader. And whereas Teresa continued in service to the city of Santa Maria for the next 39 years and retired from the city service on December 28th, 2018. After a career filled with enthusiasm and love for the city, its services, and its residents. And whereas Teresa made her way through various city departments during her career serving in the city manager's office and utilities department before returning as recreation service manager in 2011, where she fostered a team of building environments, spreading her passion, enthusiasm, knowledge, and dedication of the residents of the city. And whereas Teresa is recognized for her efforts to build community by working on significant programs and projects that benefit the residents of the city of Santa Maria, including ACES, sites at the local schools, Safe and Strong summer and after-school programs, Dia de los Muertos, and many, many more. Whereas Teresa's most impactful service was working on Mayor's Task Force on Youth Safety, where she was instrumental in building the structure and organization with multiple agencies to successfully develop the framework for action to ensure youth safety and development. Now therefore, it is hereby resolved by the City Council of the City of Santa Maria as follows. Teresa Rayburn is hereby recognized for her 39 years of dedicated service to the city of Santa Maria, and staff wishes her and the rest of her family many years of adventure, good health, and happiness. Passed and adopted at a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Santa Maria, and I'll make that as a motion. Okay, and I have a second. Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Madam Mayor Patino.
Aye.
Councilmember Waterfield. Aye. Councilmember Soto.
Aye.
Councilmember Moats.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries.
She said I could say a few words. I have my children back here, and they're glad to have their mother back because we do a lot more things now. And for those of you that are climbing the ladder, do the good work you're doing. Dennis is filling in. We have people and volunteers, and if you ever want to do anything, recruit people in the community and have them work and volunteer and have them work with children that need that type of situation. So thank you very much. It was a wonderful ride, and I'd like to introduce my two children. Stevie Rayburn in the back, reluctant. And my daughter, who's getting married in August, is hoping that I'm talking really quick because she has to meet somebody, and tomorrow we look for the dress. So anyway, and we'd invite you all, but thank you so much.
Mr. Davis, would you like to make any comments? No? Okay. Okay. Yes, Dr. Moats. Okay.
And I also would like to make a retirement resolution, and this is for Jim Davis. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Santa Maria recognizing Jim Davis for 32 years of service to the City of Santa Maria. Whereas Parks Manager Jim Davis began his service to the residents of the City of Santa Maria on April 21st, 1986, as Recreation Supervisor. Prior to coming to Santa Maria, he worked for the recreation agencies in Ventura County. And whereas for many years Jim Davis supervised several aspects of the city's recreation programs, from youth sports to senior adult programs. Later, he was promoted to Recreation Services Manager and then accepted the position of Parks and Services Manager. And whereas Jim Davis was an integral part of the development teams for many impactful community projects, such as the Paul Nelson Aquatic Center renovation, the Maldonado Youth Center, Buena Vista Park renovation, and many more. And whereas Jim Davis has worked closely with community groups including Santa Maria Valley Beautiful, the Santa Maria Pioneer Association, Buena Vista Beautifiers, countless sports groups and local school districts, always looking to find common sense solutions to issues facing the community. And whereas Jim Davis is well known across the city of Santa Maria for his willingness to help other employees, for his leadership and management skills, and for his friendly and open demeanor. And whereas Jim Davis not only served the residents of the city of Santa Maria, he also served the victims of natural disasters across the United States as a volunteer disaster worker for the American Red Cross. Now therefore, it is hereby resolved by the Council of the City of Santa Maria, California as follows. Jim Davis is hereby recognized for his 32 years of dedicated service to the City of Santa Maria, and staff wishes him and the rest of his family many years of adventure, good health, and happiness.
And do I have a second for the motion?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to adopt the resolution honoring Jim Davis for his years, and the second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Moats?
Aye.
Councilmember Waterfield?
Aye.
Councilmember Soto?
Aye.
Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye.
I'd like to say it's been a quick 32 years, believe it or not. Been able to be involved in a lot of projects, been very fortunate to work with some fabulous people in the community, from the volunteer groups and organizations to staff and the different school districts. And I've had the fortunate for the last 25 years to work for Alex Posada. He's been a great friend, but also a fantastic boss. My parents brought us up to, I think it's a Charlie Pride song, "You Gotta Stand for Something," and Alex exemplifies that and supports his staff in that area. So I want to thank Alex and all those I've worked with. You've got a lot of great staff that are dedicated and give their heart, and appreciate it. And I'd like to introduce my wife. A lot of people have thought I wasn't married, but I'm going to so many events and programs. She was taking care of our daughters. One is athletic trainer over at St. Joseph for the last 8 years, and the other's completing her master's in May up at Chico State. So they've gone through the school system here, and it's been a great time for us. When we came up, we had we were expecting our first, so it's been a great ride for us. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Jim,
Ms. Waterfield?
Jim, I have one thing to say. You must not have worked very hard, because if that's your before picture and this is your after, you didn't age. You did not age a bit.
I know, I was going to say, Teresa's pictures look the same. There's something must be about the Recs and Parks departments. Age-defying. Mr. Posada.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'd like to take a minute just to thank Teresa and Jim for their service. You add up their service, well over 60 years of service to the city of Santa Maria. We have literally grown up together in the department. Teresa's enthusiasm, her drive, her motivation, everybody in the room that knows her, can't deny that. Everybody that's had an opportunity in the city to work with her, can't deny that. She's tenacious when she gets an assignment, and she worked very hard on everything that she took on as a project. Jim's the same way, just a little quieter. He did it in the background. There was no project that I could push Jim's way that he wouldn't do a great job on. I will dearly miss both of them at work every day. I hope to keep the friendships going. But again, it's an example, I think, of the type of employees that Santa Maria has had since the 80s and 90s. And I'm hoping that the new employees take Teresa's message to heart, that it's all about working hard for the city and the residents of the city. So thank you very much, and congratulations to them. I wish them well.
Thank you. The next item is a proclamation, and Councilmember Soto would be making the presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would like to present item ID, the Women's March proclamation. As most of you know, in January 2017, we saw more than 1 million people from across the country march in Washington, D.C. to defy the looming threats to reproductive rights, women's rights, and all human rights. Here locally on the Central Coast, we have seen marches take place in San Luis Obispo and in Santa Barbara since then. And this year, it is wonderful to see Santa Maria, one of the largest cities on the Central Coast, having its first ever Women's March. This will give people in our community the opportunity to stand with women's rights, reproductive rights, access to choice, LGBTQ plus rights, immigrant rights, access to health care, protecting our environment, and the rights of young people. On Saturday, January 19th, the City of Santa Maria will stand in solidarity and in march. So here with a proclamation. Whereas the mission of the Women's March of Santa Maria Valley is to promote and celebrate the empowerment of all women in our communities. And whereas the vision of the Women's March of Santa Maria Valley is to strive to protect all human rights, protect the safety and health of all people through nonviolent means, work to unify the diverse peoples in the community, recognizes that transformative changes are driven by grassroots actions and political activism. And whereas their undefined principles are to work to create a just and accessible society in which all women are free and able to care for their families in a non-violent, safe, healthy, and economically fair environment. And whereas every major city will be standing in solidarity on January 19th to advocate for the rights of women, people of color, those who are disabled, immigrants, and LGBTQ+ people, ensuring healthcare, education, and justice for all. Women's March of Santa Maria Valley Day in the city of Santa Maria, and we encourage our residents and businesses to support the efforts of the Women's March of Santa Maria Valley. So I invite every Santa Marian to take part of this amazing march again on Saturday, January 19th. And the proclamation will be accepted by Audie McDonald Funes and Jesse McDonald Funes.
And I do want to invite the other organizers to join me and people that have been organizing. We are receiving this, and as everyone's introducing their wife, this is my wife, Audie. And we're very excited, and I just want everybody to come up that's been organizing, because it's not just me. I do want to say that this is a very important moment in history, and for the women that are here in our chamber, I just hope that we remember how we got to these places, the suffragists, the womenists, the feminists, and that these are things that we are fighting for because they are basically being erased. And even my neighbors who, they work 3 jobs and they have children and husbands and they still can't afford to, pay their mortgage or pay their water bill. And so it's incredible that we're in 2019 and we're still fighting for, to end racism, to end sexism, to end xenophobia, to end homophobia, transphobia. And so, women, we're still not paid the same amount as men. And for the men in the audience, I hope that you will join us and that you will use your privilege as well to make sure that everyone in this chamber has equity and equality. Normally, if you look back in history, as many of us have, it's not just in the history books, we're living it right now. And we would not be sitting in this chamber collectively like this if people did not fight for these rights, die for these rights, and continue to push forward. So I just want to thank you for the proclamation and for all the organizers as well. And I just want to give voice to everyone who feels that they've been ostracized, pushed down, put away, and shunned, or told to be quiet. And so for the women in the room, please join us, and for everyone here that has never had that voice, know that Santa Maria is here for you, y aquí estamos y no nos vamos. So thank you very much.
The next item is another proclamation, and Councilmember Waterfield will be making the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and it is a great honor to give this proclamation for the Respect for Life Week. The background of the Central Coast Citizens for the Family and Life was started over 31 years ago by a lady I knew, and I call her friend, was Mrs. Pat Rayleigh. The organization operates with the mission that human life is sacred from conception to natural death. Each year, Respect for Life Week is commemorated throughout the United States with a large prayer gatherings and walks. In the state of California, thousands of people participate in gathering in San Francisco and Los Angeles. Locally, the annual Life Walk will take place on Sunday, January 20th, 2019. The route begins in front of Santa Maria City Hall at 2:30 p.m. with prayer and speakers that range from civic and community leaders to local clergy. Now for the proclamation. Whereas for over 31 years, the Central Coast Citizens for Family and Life have been celebrating Respect for Life Week in Santa Maria. Whereas it is imperative that residents of the community defend human life at all ages and conditions of dependency that protect the disabled, the handicapped, and those defenseless in every way. And whereas this year, Respect for Life Week is being celebrated January 14th through January 20th. Whereas the local Life Walk will take place on Sunday, January 20th, 2019, and whereas Respect for Life is a vital issue that invites all public awareness. Now therefore, Alice Patino, Mayor of the City of Santa Maria, hereby recognizes the week of January 14th through 20th, 2019 as Respect for Life Week in the City of Santa Maria. And I am very honored. I will be one of those speaking on January 20th for the Respect for Life Week, and I look forward to that. And here to accept the proclamation is a good friend of mine, John Lindgren.
Good evening. I'm here to represent the rights of the unborn. Mayor Patino, council members, it is with great humility that the Central Coast Citizens for Family and Life accept this proclamation for Respect Life Week 2019. Santa Maria is a growing community with great respect for the lives of each of its citizens. No less important are the lives of those yet to breathe, who are the future of our great community. This proclamation states that the respect for life in our community is important and needs to be recognized. Tonight, as in every year for over the past 30 years, this City Council is proclaiming that life is sacred and needs to be respected and protected. Message received. This Sunday, we will gather on the other side of the wall over here at 2:30 to unite our city for just that cause. To thank our God for creating life and the blessings of nurturing these precious children. We invite the City Council, invite the audience to join us and be a part of this annual celebration in our community. We will end our program at the city's finest pregnancy center, CareNet, for refreshments and a tour of their facility that is saving and caring for lives every day. This is a time where people are choosing sides more than ever before. We know the Bible tells us to choose this day, and that there are blessings and cursings depending on what side we choose. Well, we choose life, that both we and our children may live. In closing, I would like to give each council member a token of our appreciation in the form of a lapel pin. This pen has a rose on it and the words life, just like we are proclaiming tonight. Could you give that? Thank you, and may God bless each member of this council.
Next on our agenda is the public comment period. Madam Clerk, could you please read the criteria for the public comment portion of the agenda?
This time is reserved to accept comments from the public on consent agenda items, closed session items, or matters not otherwise scheduled on the printed agenda this evening. Unless otherwise directed by the mayor, speakers will have 3 minutes to comment. Direction to staff may be given, however, state law does not allow action to be taken by the city council on matters not on the printed agenda. Once the public comment period commences, no other speakers will be allowed to submit a request to speak form. And Madam Mayor, we have 3 requests to speak.
3, thank you. And that's 3 minutes apiece. Okay, there will be no further requests to speak at this point accepted. Diane from American GI Forum, followed by Sarah McDonald, and followed by Jamie Rodriguez. Yes, please come over to the podium. Thank you.
Good evening,
Good
City
evening.
Council members and Santa Maria residents. My name is Diane Flores, and I represent the American GI Forum Educational Foundation that has been active in our city since the 1980s. And what we do is we give out scholarships annually, and we run programs for veterans, programs for families and children, and I'd like everyone to know that we just opened up a new office in Santa Maria at the old Children's Resource Center, which is located right in back of Rose of Sharon on Main Street. And we have many programs, and I'd like to invite anyone who are business people, family members, veterans, all are welcome, and we love you. Everyone in our city is welcome to our new office, 705 East Main Street, Santa Maria, Suite 101. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Flores. Sarah McDonald, followed by Jamie Rodriguez.
Good evening. I want to say I'm Sarah MacDonald, and I'm representing the League of Women Voters as part of their Observer Corps. The League of Women Voters are a nonpartisan organization, and I look forward to watching your meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Jamie Rodriguez, and I'm the president of NSBT, which is North Santa Barbara Manufactured Homeowners Team. My comments tonight are on behalf of NSBT, which is an organization affiliated with the Golden State Manufactured Homeowners League of California. We are mobile homeowners in a unique position of owning our own home, but renting the land it sits on. We are not mobile. We can't just pick up our stuff and leave as other renters do when their rent increases. Some of us have invested our life savings in our mobile homes and may still be paying a mortgage besides the rent. I would like to reaffirm Santa Maria's need for enforceable rent stabilization or rent control. The model lease program was introduced in 1999 after a protest before the city council regarding unfair rent increases. As a proven failure for mobile home residents in Santa Maria, rent has increased faster than the CPI. Seniors and others on fixed incomes have remaining options to sell their homes, move out of state, turn to subsidized housing, or worse yet, live on the streets. I would like to remind you of the past years of the nominal income increases for Social Security and federal annuities compared with the cost of living increases. At the death of a spouse, leaving a widow or widower with 1/3 of their former income, many will have to adjust to a lower standard of living. Mobile home owners in Santa Maria need an ordinance that provides a reasonable balance of protection of affordability to the homeowner and an appropriate rate of return on investment for the park owners. Let me remind you, not only does the city of Santa Barbara, the county of Santa Barbara has a rent stabilization ordinance already in place, as well as Goleta, Lompoc, Morro Bay, Pismo Beach, and city and county of San Luis Obispo, and 84 other cities and counties in the state of California have rent control. NSBT is prepared to assist and help with the process of enforceable rent stabilization and rent control. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. That concludes the public comment portion of the agenda. Before we move on, Mr. Stillwell, did you wish to make any comments?
Sure, just briefly, Madam Mayor, members of the council.
Yes.
In regard to Ms. Rodriguez's comments about the manufactured homeowners, the city has facilitated a number of meetings on the mobile home rent issue, and we have additional meetings scheduled. We're confident we will be able to work with the owners to find a cooperative solution. We're working toward that end.
Thank you. Before we move on to the consent calendar, I would just like to call the attention that this is 2019, and we have had 6 officers nationally killed, 1 canine, and one officer that you've heard about, I think was last Friday, here up in Davis, California, Officer Corona. And I would just like a moment of silence for all these police officers who put their lives out on the line every single day for us. We have sent 2 battalion chiefs and 10 firefighters down to Santa Barbara. And again, they put their lives out on the line every single day. And they're getting shot at too. So these are our first responders. They are the ones that help keep our city safe. And, when you see them, please say thank you, because it means so much to all of us here in the city of Santa Maria. But it's so sad what I see, what's happening to our young men and women that wear the uniform of our police officers. So I would like a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar, Madam Clerk, could you please read item number 3?
Routine items are presented for city council approval without discussion as a single agenda item in order to expedite the meeting. The consent calendar is approved by roll call vote with one motion. These items are discussed only on the request of council members. And Madam Mayor, members of the city council, staff has requested that item 3K regarding the summary vacation be continued to a future meeting and not considered in the consent calendar vote this evening.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything they need to have pulled?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I just need item 3F pulled. I just need to abstain from that.
Okay.
And if nobody else has anything, I would like to go ahead and approve the...
I'm going to pull
Okay.
item 3L.
3L,
Anything,
okay.
Dr. Moats? Ms. Soto, anything? Okay.
Okay.
You want to make your
So,
comments?
Pardon?
You want to make your comments first?
Yes. So 3L is we're authorizing the Recreation and Parks Commission to apply for Proposition 68 funding. And so we have to, and that's what we're doing tonight, is that we're approving the grant applications. And so the Recreation and Parks Department can get grants over the next 2 years in order to minimize impacts on the future city councils. Anyway, Mr. Posada?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. So the request tonight is really to kind of help expedite the application process. Proposition 68 was passed by the voters in this last June election. Something very odd happened, and that was that Governor Brown put money in the budget immediately. So once the vote was approved, the voters approved the ballot measure, money was available, and the State Department of Parks and the State Department of Resources put out their grant applications. So we're in the middle right now of a grant cycle for, I believe it's somewhere in the realm of $35 million that grant applications will be due in February. Another unique feature of this program is that for a majority of the program, there is no matching dollars required. There are a couple that there are matching dollars required. They are heavily focused on rural communities. So again, tick some boxes for us. Projects that they're looking at are community sports facilities, something that has been on the council agenda for a while to look at how to get the soccer complex funded. There's also opportunities for tourism dollars. Mr. Morris from the Chamber and I are going to meet and talk a little bit about how we can access some of those tourism dollars to bring more tourists to the Santa Maria Valley. It's just a very unique opportunity. So this grant, or rather this resolution that you have in front of you, would allow the commission the okay to approve grant applications and send them on to the state. It is required by the state that a body of the local government be authorizing all the applications. So the city attorney has determined that the way the municipal code is written is that the council can delegate the responsibility for grant applications that do not require a match. The Rec and Parks Commission can approve those. So that's what the item is before you tonight.
Thank you very much. Okay.
With that, Madam Mayor, I'd like to adopt the consent calendar and hold item 3F and pull item 3K. Do I have a second?
I second.
We already discussed it.
We talked, yeah, we discussed it. Did you want to pull 3K to discuss, or?
No, 3K was to be continued.
Okay.
3K was to be continued. 3F was for me to
For you
abstain.
abstain, okay, got it. Okay, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Waterfield?
Aye.
Councilmember Soto?
Aye.
Councilmember Moats? And Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye.
Now, someone will have to.
Okay, I need a motion for 3F.
I can't do it.
I'd like to make a motion with
Approval.
the consent calendar with the exception of 3.
No, just approve 3F.
Only 3F.
And I move we approve the consent calendar.
3F.
Oh, just 3F?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I need a second.
I second.
Okay, it's moved and second that we approve 3F of the consent calendar. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Moats? Councilmember Soto?
Aye.
Councilmember Waterfield?
Abstain.
And Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. Okay. The next order of business are appointments to boards. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will consider making appointments to the Block Grants Advisory Committee, Landmark Committee, Measure U Citizens Oversight Committee, Planning Commission, and Recreation and Parks Commission.
Thank you. Yes, Jason.
Madam Mayor, before we get started, I received a request from Councilmember Cordero that he would ask that the council consider continuing this item until he has the opportunity to participate at a future date. And if the council's inclined to do so, you'd have to do so by motion.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I would like to honor Councilman Condero's request to
Okay.
hold over for another date.
I need a second. Okay, discussion. Where does this leave us on any of the commissions? Do the people then just stay on these commissions until they're replaced? Mr. Senko?
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, the municipal code provides that with respect to the Planning Commission, the members stay until replaced. Policy concerning Parks Commission says the same, they stay until they're replaced. And past practice has been for all boards that the incumbents stay until they're replaced, even if their terms expired.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion? Okay.
Does that mean that
Miss-
we'll continue to have the application process open?
Yes, if that's your wish. Yeah.
Is that okay?
You can
Okay.
make it part of the motion.
Okay,
Madam Mayor, I'd like to amend that motion to keep the application process opened.
okay, thank you. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Waterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Moats? Councilmember Soto?
Aye.
And Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. Okay, moving on to item number 5.
Should I please go ahead and read the title?
Yes, please read the title.
City Council will consider an appeal of the Santa Maria Valley Railroad of the Planning Commission's recommendation to approve a tentative track map for Betteravia Plaza to allow the subdivision of 57-acre parcel into 22 lots for commercial, office, high-density residential, and open space uses.
Okay, and staff report is to be made by Community Development Director, Mr. Ng.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. This is an appeal hearing for Betteravia Plaza. Just as a refresher, Betteravia Plaza is located north of Betteravia and east of Blosser, west of the railroad and south of Carmen Lane. It is the project site indicated by the vacant area that you see on the map here. These are some photos from street view. This is from Betteravia. This is what it looks like off of Carmen. This is from Blosser. And as a matter of clarification, this project was approved back in 2016. What was recently approved was a subdivision of the land tract map, and the appeal is the approval of the track map decision from the Planning Commission. But back in 2016, the City Council and the Planning Commission approved a general plan amendment, a zone change, an environmental impact report, a development agreement, and a master plan development permit. And this is the layout of the different land uses for Betteravia Plaza. There's a mixture of residential, commercial, and you can also see the lot configurations. This is a division of 22 lots. This is the map that was recently approved by Planning Commission back on November 21st. Again, this is a division of land of 57 acres into 21 lots. The applicant is Dan Blau. The party that is appealing is Santa Maria Railroad, as represented by Mr. Komodo and Mr. Sheff. In the letter provided by Santa Maria Railroad, they contest that the zoning along the railroad should continue to be industrial, and that any zone changes would deter additional customers for the railroad with the loss of industrial properties. Staff's response to this is that this was decided back in 2016, back when this was originally approved. Again, the latest decision is the approval of the track map. The letter from the railroad also indicates that that they're opposed to the bike path due to concerns regarding access or those that may loiter in the railroad area. They're also opposed to widening the crossing on Betteravia Road, and concerns regarding crossing arms and stormwater retention. The bulk of these concerns, unfortunately, they refer back to conditions in the development agreement back in 2016. The conditions that are typical for a tract map pertain to the right-of-way and public improvements for streets. But even a lot of that is somewhat that framework has been set up by the development agreement that was approved back in 2016. In regards to concerns regarding the railroad and access to the railroad, there is a trail easement that is adjacent to the railroad. And upon development there are several parcels adjacent to the railroad. Upon submittal of development applications for those parcels adjacent to the railroad, there'll be an opportunity to fine-tune the design of any fencing for the trail adjacent to the railroad. So when that occurs, we will make sure to also engage the railroad in discussions of the final design for that fencing. Here are some photos of the Betteravia Road railroad crossing, and this is the railroad crossing on Carmen. Ultimately, staff's recommendation is that the council adopt a resolution denying the appeal by Santa Maria Railroad and uphold the Planning Commission's decision to approve Betteravia Plaza tentative tract map and the addendum to the final EIR. This concludes staff's presentation, and we invite any questions you may have.
Any questions of Mr. Ng?
I do have a question. And as I was reading this report and looking at the appeal, the discussion in the appeal letter, the conditions of approval, which are the bike path, the railroad crossing, street improvements, and storm water retention, those were already taken into consideration? Or are these things that have not been approved and have not been taken into consideration?
There are conditions of approval as part of the tentative track map, but a lot of it have somewhat been predetermined by the development agreement 2 years prior.
In 2016.
They reference conditions in the development agreement. There are some details and specifics that will come when the plan development permits are submitted for individual projects on each of the parcels.
Yes, that I understand, yeah. But the conditions of approval listed here have already been taken into consideration in the 2016. That's what I'm trying to understand.
items, amenities like the bike path easement, that's spelled out in the development agreement
Right.
and the overall concept plan.
Okay. That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Any other questions here?
I do.
Ms. Soto?
Yeah, with the bike path that they're peeling, I know that over by the country club in Waller Park, there's like a bike path that goes right along the railroad tracks. Did they have any issues with that when we were first having conversations about? And how, I mean, why is it that they're having an issue with it now and not in that particular area?
I do not have first-hand account, and the applicant may have more information on that.
Okay. Is the appellant here?
The appellant is
Okay,
here.
and would you like to make any comments, Mr. Himoto? Okay, if you please come up to the podium. Good evening, Mr. Himoto.
Good evening, Mayor Patino. Good evening, City Council. Let's have a little statement here. Santa Maria Valley Railroad is appealing the tentative track map for Betteria Plaza for the reasons of deficiencies. Northwest border of the Santa Maria Valley Railroad in the project shows the PDR3 high-density residential. In the southwest corner is PDC2 general commercial. Locating high-density residential next to the railroad right-of-way creates many problems, including trespassing, vandalism, and trash dumping. General commercial may be more appropriate for railroad operations, depending on the tenant. Far north portion of the project shows open space. Open space typically next to the railroad right-of-way is never good for the railroad, only encourages
Mr. Himoto, could you bring the mic down so you speak into it, please? Thank you.
Open space next to the railroad right-of-way is never good for the railroad and only encourages trespassing, vandalism, and trash dumping. As far as the bike path, we'd rather see it on Western Avenue for the safety of the public. We feel there needs to be more remedial action for the safety of the general public, proper barriers to separate the public and the railroad, and we do not feel the requirements adequately address the development agreement. We understand we're late to the party here. The railroad should have been involved with the EIR process and the change of zoning, all which have been previously passed by the city council. But the past community development director was very poor in communicating things to us. His excuse was we only had an easement, which is not correct. We actually owned the right-of-way in fee. And in the past, certain city staff would say, this doesn't really pertain to you, even though it's next to the railroad tracks. A railroad is a different animal. In some ways, it's like a utility. Any changes in land use next to the railroad right-of-way can and will have an effect on the railroad. Also, various state and local transportation plans, visions, and goals encourage the use of railroad transportation and encourages local governments to take into consideration the land use next to the railroad tracks. If land use changes continue, in the future, we would like to be part of more of the process and see more mitigation efforts rather than ignoring the railroad.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Himoto? Yes, Dr. Moats.
Yes, I was just curious as to the noise level that the train might present to the high-density residential as you're passing through near their property, in terms of like the whistle that the train makes that other people comment on.
Well, it is near a crossing, Betteria Road crossing, and we're required by the Federal Railroad Administration to blow our horn in a certain cadence.
Mm-hmm.
And the cadence, what's the decibels? Is 128
Wow.
decibels, so it's pretty loud. And it's for our safety, for the public safety. We've had a lot of close calls at that particular crossing, a lot. We're hoping never to hit somebody, but horns do help.
Yes. Go ahead, Ms. Soto.
You mentioned that any kind of development near a railroad track causes changes to the railroad, correct? Did I understand that correctly?
Correct.
So what changes did the railroad see when those, like, that walk path, that bike path over by Waller Park was built?
Since the bike path was put in, a lot more trespassing, trash dumping, and vandalism. We've had cars graffitied, et cetera. But just a lot more trespassing. The railroads are just not compatible with public walkways unless there's a pretty significant barrier. We've had some close calls there of people trespassing on the tracks. We're kind of a slow MPH railroad, but it still takes a long time to stop a train. Our trains are getting longer. The last 4 or 5 years, we've quadrupled business, which means the trains are longer, bigger tonnage, so it just takes longer to stop.
Okay. Ms. Waterfield?
Before I continue, I'm getting background noise with that door open. Can you please shut that, please? I hear those voices talking in the hallway, and it's killing me. Were you present at the 2016 Planning Commission meeting?
No, I wasn't.
When this came through? Was any of your staff present?
No.
What about, were you present at the November 2018 meeting?
No.
Okay.
No, we missed that because we just got late notice.
I think the issue that I'm having heartburn over is that this developer went along in the process of developing this without any issues, Mr. Hamoto, and a lot of money and time went into this. So I wish you would have been, at either one of those meetings to express your undesire to have something like this occur while they were setting all the plans and everything. So I would like to hear from the developer if he is available, just to see what his conditions would be to work with you in regards to in the process of what's going to be happening, and maybe something there can develop between the developer and you in regards to what would be most beneficial for both parties.
Right, absolutely. I think we need more communication.
Yeah,
And there's no communication whatsoever with the developer.
okay. Well, and I believe the developer is here, and maybe he might be
Yeah.
willing to say a few words.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hamoto.
Thank you.
And the applicant is here. Good evening, Mr. Blau.
Good evening, how you doing? First off, I need you to know that I did call the railroad's office the day after they filed the appeal, asking for a meeting with the president of the railroad, and my phone call was not returned. I've heard nothing from them. But having said that, that doesn't really matter. I understand their problem with the pedestrian trail. It's multi-purpose trail, by the way. It's 10 foot wide, and I'm not sure what the surface is going to be yet. Mr. Posada and I haven't actually got around to finalizing that. But what I have told them in the past was, what we're planning on doing is putting up an 8-foot chain link fence on our property line, separating the walk path from the railroad property. And I intend on using I have to ask my wife what it is, but there's a vine that grows that's frost-proof, that doesn't, it's not deciduous, it's evergreen all the time, because I don't want to see the railroad, to tell you the truth. It's not a pretty sight for our site. And I also understand that we don't want people trespassing or even walking in that railroad area, which, if you look to the north of this, where this trail continues, you'll see that there is fencing, although the fencing is, in my opinion, pretty inadequate and ugly. It's kind of a square block with spacing. It's about a foot, I think, somewhat in disrepair. But I think if we put up a good chain link fence that's in concrete posts and we landscape it correctly, it will protect the railroad and we don't have to see it. I do have to make comment on the railroad crossing on Betaravia. this is going back 20-some years, but when I redid the England Gray property, that used to be 7 parcels, it's now 3, and we did a rezone in that. At that point in time, if I remember correctly, we had them do an offer of dedication for both Thornburg and for the frontage on Betaravia. And at the time that the England Gray, it's actually just the England property now, the Grays are no longer involved, does a development on there, then at that point in time, the railroad crossing will be shoved to the north a little bit, will be made larger, and lines up with what we have, what's going to be our new Betaravia frontage when we finish the public improvements. So it's not going to be happening yet because there's not enough room. It needs to have, a wider area in front of the England Gray property. But that being said, I don't think we're going to be in conflict with the railroad. The open space park that they talked about, I would hope that the Parks Department, when they develop that park back there, which I know they have plans to do, that they would continue my fencing and the covering on the fencing so that it blocks it all the way to Carmen Lane. Access from Carmen or from Betaravia, I can't help them with. That's where the railroad enters the track across the roadway. But I could certainly cooperate with them and try and blocking any access from our property. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions of Mr. Blau? No, Dr. Moats.
Well, continuing along with noise, in terms of noise mitigation, are you going to put a nice sound wall up between the high-density residential and the railroad area?
Probably not, because that wall wouldn't do a thing for that horn blowing on Betaravia, and that's where the noise is going to be. Understand that if I don't talk right now, that's about 60 decibels in this room. 120 decibels is an enormously loud sound, and it's meant to be. It's meant to be, so if you're driving in your car with your windows rolled up and you got the radio on, you'll hear the train horn. That's what it's for. But I think, at the moment, I don't think they're having to blow their horn when they cross Carmen Lane, because there's no crossing there. That's been a point of concern for Public Works. But from Betaravia, I don't think it's going to be a substantial amount of sound back that far. Obviously, we're going to do thermal pane windows. We did anyway for the Title 24 requirements, but to go beyond that, it's not going to do much good.
Thank you. Ms. Waterfield?
Just one more question. Does Ingle own all the property that, if you could go back to the map? Yes, right there along the Santa Maria Railroad. Is that all Ingle property right there? So you don't have a whole, up to the residential area, correct?
Correct.
And part of that is PDR3.
Correct. There are 3 parcels. The parcel on the front of the Betaravia is zone C2.
Is a C2,
And then
yes.
there are 2 more parcels in the back that are zoned R3.
Okay.
And I say 2 parcels, I think the dedication for the extension of Thornburg has already been given by the England Grays. You just haven't accepted it yet. And
Yeah.
that's a function of how you do that. But
And that's pretty much down the road quite a bit in regards to that development. Yeah, I'm sure it is. Okay.
I don't know when it's going to occur. Like I said, I started that, I think it's actually 28 years ago. It's been a while.
Okay.
Any other questions of Mr. Blau?
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have any written correspondence?
No, Madam Mayor, we do not.
So I'll open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak in favor or opposition?
No request to speak for this item, ma'am.
Okay. So I'll close the public hearing and bring this back to the council. My comment is, the railroad is a very viable operation, and they have a lot of businesses that depend on them, and I know that we've had issues with pedestrians crossing in the railroad, and the trash and the garbage that have happened along the railroad tracks. So I sympathize with you, Mr. Himoto. It's such a huge problem. But it's it's a business in Santa Maria, and it's a thriving business, and it's getting better every year. And a lot of the growers, and I don't know who all depends on you, and you have a great reputation for doing a good job for those people. So I think we need to be talking to each other so that we aren't in conflict with one another. But anyway, that's all I have to say. Dr. Moats, did you want to make a comment? Or you didn't have your hand up? Or
I'd like to make a resolution.
You may do that.
But before you do that, may I make a comment? And Mr. Himoto, with what Mr. Blau had indicated up here of getting in contact with you about the fencing and trying to come together with a solution on that, I hope that is something that the two of you will earnestly do to make that area better. Where I'm coming from is I wish you would have been in the 2016 and the 2018 meetings and have not let the process have gotten this far down the road. And, Mayor Alice was talking about business. You've got a thriving business. There's another thriving business that's going here as well. Had, input been taken, it might have been a completely, on my part, a different understanding of this project. I respect the railroad, I'm a fan, and I do everything as much as I possibly can to make sure that your business thrives as well.
So, Ms. Soto.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to say that I think that this is a great opportunity for the residents in District 3. I know we've been needing more commercial space and definitely open space, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, then I'd like to make a resolution denying an appeal by the Santa Maria Valley Railroad and upholding the Planning Commission's decision to approve the Betaravia Plaza tentative track map and addendum to the final environmental impact report.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Moats?
Aye.
Councilmember Soto?
Aye.
Councilmember Waterfield?
Aye.
And Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. The next item on our agenda is another public hearing. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will consider a recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve a special project for the City of Santa Maria to create a downtown multimodal streetscape concept plan to redesign Main Street and Broadway within the downtown specific plan area.
Staff report is to be made by Community Development Director, Mr. Ng.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, this public hearing is a culmination of hard work and a lot of collaboration. I'm going to turn the time over to the project manager, Netta Zayer. She'll be providing a presentation. This is also in collaboration with Public Works, so Roger is also here to speak on behalf of engineering.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. This project, just to give you a bit of background before we dive into the elements of the streetscape concept plan. Back in 2015, the City Council approved and adopted a updated version of the downtown specific plan. Back in 2015, one of the implementation items of that specific plan was to look at a streetscape plan, to look and review and examine the downtown streets and look at ways to make them more pedestrian and bicycle friendly, as well as accommodating the vehicles, and then also to take an opportunity to improve the downtown streets to spur or catalyze economic development. The city staff, a joint effort between Public Works and the Community Development Department, was to apply for a grant with Caltrans to put together a concept plan. The major corridors of the downtown are Main Street and Broadway, which are Caltrans right-of-ways. And we applied for that grant and received that grant back in 2016. And since then, we've been working in conjunction with Caltrans and the community to put together a concept plan that could be further studied that would look at some improvements in that area. So that's a bit of background as we dive in. Just to give you an overview of what we'll be talking about today, we'll talk about some of the goals of the plan, then what we've heard from the community as we did our outreach and went out to talk to the public about the concepts, go through some of the high-level ideas that the concept plan will be exploring, and then next steps, what we are going to do to further this effort. The project area, and again, the project intent is to develop a concept plan that is going to guide future design and implementation in the area so that we could study that design a bit further. The boundaries of the area are on Main Street, on West Main Street from Pine Street all the way to Miller on East Main, and then from Broadway, from North Broadway, Mill Street, all the way down to Cook Street. The overarching goals of the plan were to enhance these corridors and again to make them more pedestrian and bicycle friendly, as well as accommodate transit and vehicles and truck movements on those streets, and then really to help connect other areas of the downtown and the surrounding communities to help the downtown businesses and people who are parking in the structures move around more safely and easily within the downtown, to catalyze economic development or redevelopment in some of the areas of downtown, and really to help through the streetscape elements and furnishings to brand and give downtown an identity. The first step of the process as we started putting together this plan, that was a major goal of Caltrans as well as the city, was to go out and do extensive public outreach and speak to the community about what their desires were for downtown and the downtown streets. With that, we launched a large effort, and we went out to Allen Hancock College, to Santa Maria High School, and spoke to students about what their desires were for downtown. We held 2 community workshops back in October of 2017 to do interactive engagement with the community. We went to several local churches, to Downtown Fridays, to the Festival of Lights, and spoke to the community there. We've worked closely with the chamber and the media and the downtown property owners and businesses to really get as much feedback as we can from the community. We also partnered with the school district and the health department and went to several Spanish-speaking events and spoke with the Spanish-speaking population to find their unique needs for the downtown. We had an online survey that gauged what the community's input was. We had about 700 people respond to that. Overall, we believe we spoke to about 2,000 to 3,000 people through this process to get as much input as we could. The big ideas or overarching themes we heard through all of that engagement was they desired to see more activities in downtown, gathering spaces, plaza spaces, businesses, things to go to, and they also wanted to improve walkability and bicycle movements and safety within the downtown through the street network. And from all of that input we received from the community, we began to put together a task of putting together a concept plan that could capture as much of those desires as possible in the plan. And this is the concept plan that we have put together to further study and see the feasibility of in the future. So just to give a little walk through history. This is a segment of downtown that was taken back in 1956. It's at Broadway and Cypress Street, which Cypress through Broadway no longer exists. But this picture was captured then, and this is Cypress Street in the foreground. Back here where these cars are moving is what was Church Street. That does not go through any longer either, and then back here was Main Street. And this picture really captures the vibrancy and identity and feeling of what downtown used to have, and the hopes is to bring some of that vitality back into the downtown corridor. This picture is of that exact area as it looks today. As you can see, Cypress no longer goes through. Neither does Church Street, but Main is back here in the background. There's opportunity here, and here's a concept rendering. There's opportunity here to repurpose some of this streetscape for the benefit of safety for pedestrians and bicycles, but also economic development opportunities in the future to repurpose some of the surface parking lots or underutilized sites in the downtown to build in more areas for the community and visitors to eat, shop, dine, live, and work in the downtown. And this concept gives an illustration of what that could possibly look like in the future. The overarching tools that we used and tried to envelope into the concept plan, we'll go through a few of those right now. One was the establishment of a street character and identity for the pedestrian scale. Things like widening the sidewalks, adding street trees and landscaping, street furnishings and pedestrian scale amenities to really give a character and enhance the business experience and the pedestrian experience in the downtown. Also, we explore the idea of what are called curb extensions or bulb outs, and these are extensions at the intersections that, again, enhance those intersection areas with unique paving or painting or striping that could occur in those areas. They also shorten the distance of bicyclists and pedestrians crossing the streets, particularly at Main and Broadway, which are wider streets, and can really enhance that experience of safety and really demarcate the downtown. Also, we explored the concept tools of repurposing some of the roadway or right-of-way in forming outdoor dining or seating areas. This again gives a unique experience in the downtown and can really help with partnering with the downtown businesses to create additional space for and enhancement for their businesses. And then finally, we explore the concept of raised buffer bike lanes. Currently, both Main Street and Broadway do not have bicycle facilities. And instead of putting them adjacent to the vehicles, which we see throughout the rest of the city, we explored an idea of placing them adjacent to the pedestrians instead. Broadway and Main Street have a lot of traffic and volume and high speeds. It would be easier for a bicycle to navigate with pedestrians than with vehicles, and that can just enhance the safety for both the vehicles and trucks and the pedestrians and bicyclists. Excuse me. I'm having the same problem as Alex. Moving on to the key elements of the concept plan. So we took all of those elements, and then this is a broad overlay of those design features placed in Main and Broadway. This plan at high level looks at expanding sidewalks wherever possible, adding those bike facilities at Broadway and Main, adding more on-street parking for the benefit of future development in the area, and just safer and more frequent crossings to allow pedestrians the ability to traverse the streets safely. Just to give you a higher level zoom in on the main intersection of Main and Broadway to see what some of these concepts could look like. Here's a blow up of that intersection. Here we have in this darker clay color what would be potentially a bike facility on the sidewalk, and then next to the sidewalks that are in the gray. Potentially bulb outs could be put at the intersections, again enhancing the main intersection, enhancing the crosswalks and separating the crossings of the pedestrians and bicyclists, again for further safety. Looking at adding additional street trees, on-street street trees to both add beautification, slow down traffic to desirable speeds, and also to be used for stormwater purposes as well for the city. These concepts all have to be further studied and explored. We have to put truck turning templates on it and do traffic analysis to determine the feasibility of each of these concept ideas. That has still not been done and will be part of the next steps in this plan. But these are the high-level concepts that we do want to study further to see how feasible they would be in this area. Just to take one representative segment of the street, now there's blow-ups of every segment of the downtown in the plan itself, but we'll just cover West Main Street, particularly because this is a segment that the city we'll be looking at first, hopefully to implement some of these concept plans. So here's a blow-up of what West Main Street could look like. Again, the addition of the bike facilities along the sidewalk, the enhanced sidewalks, additional street trees, looking at enhancing each of these intersections with maybe different paving materials or colors or striping opportunities, and adding more frequent crossings for both pedestrians and bicyclists. Here's a section through that area. So this yellow bar is where this section is taken from. On the lower portion of the screen or to the south is the boot barn that's existing, and to the north is what used to be the Sound of Stereo and now the newly approved Gateway Mixed Use project on that location. If we took a cut through that area, currently this is what that segment looks like. As you can see through this pie chart, the majority of the area is used right now, or the majority of the right-of-way is used for vehicle and truck movements. The plan looks at potentially reallocating that area and distributing some of it for widening of the sidewalks, adding the bike facilities, and then additional landscaping. This pie chart represents what that possible reallocation would look like. Still accommodating vehicle and truck movements, but also enhancing the pedestrian and bicycle experience and reuse of that area to benefit some of the businesses surrounding.
One question, Netta. You would be taking out that designated right lane turn then that goes on to Main Street?
That will be studied, and the impacts of that would be studied to see if that's a feasible option.
Okay.
To another portion of the plan, so that was really what the street elements or right-of-way look like. Another element of the streetscape plan was really adding the character and identity to the downtown. At the open house we held in April of 2018, we asked the community that attended that workshop what they preferred the style or character of the downtown to look like in terms of furnishings, lighting, landscape, and things of that nature. They were offered a variety of different styles, and the one that the community said they most identified with or wanted to see in the downtown was a Mission Traditional. Now, this is just a representation of the style. The exact features or furnishings haven't been selected at this point, but the idea of Mission Traditional will be further explored in the future when selecting those items. It'll fit in well with the existing furnishings and details we have already in the downtown area. Moving on to next steps, so what from this point, once the City Council acts on this plan tonight, and if it is approved and adopted, we will move on to the next steps or next phases of the project. The next steps were also discussed at the April 2018 open house, and we asked the community at that meeting also, where would you like us to focus our attention first? And these red dots on this map show what the responses of those that were at that meeting indicated. And as you can see, there was a high level of interest at this intersection and West Main. So the city is looking at potential catalyst projects or starting the first concept ideas in this area. There's already the approved mixed-use project at that corner, which is shown here, and that project, as well as the existing businesses along West Main that are fairly established, could also benefit from starting in that area with the first Catalyst project. So what will need to occur after this point is we will need to conduct a traffic study and analysis that will look at all of the concepts outlined in the plan and study them, determine their feasibility, put some actual numbers and templates to them. We already have contracted with GHD, I always mix that up, GHD to do the traffic study and analysis of the area and study these concepts. Also, we're partnering with Caltrans that is coming through in the future and doing repavement and project modification of Broadway and seeing if we can incorporate some of these improvements with their efforts in that project. And then we'll move forward from there once that traffic study's done and really studying each of the segments, looking at the design details and engineering, going out for bids, coming back to the council and working through those details of what could potentially occur in this area. And that concludes staff's presentation. I'm available for any questions, as well as Roger Oles from Public Works, who can speak to the next steps of the traffic study and future projects. Terry Parsons of Caltrans is also here and has been partnering with us through the whole process, and she's available to answer any questions on the Caltrans side.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was very, very comprehensive. Any questions? Dr. Moats?
Oh, there must be a million questions about this. I like this term traffic calming, and that's something that's good. But do the motorists want to be calm? Don't they simply want to get through the intersection and move on?
Really help with road rage, calming them. Traffic calming is really to help vehicles and trucks move at a speed that is appropriate for the area that they are traveling through. Right now, and Caltrans could speak more to this, and Roger, we do see high speeds on Main and Broadway, and travelers going higher than the posted speeds in that area. Traffic calming just gives the visual cues necessary for them to know the appropriate speeds to travel and be aware that there are pedestrians and bicyclists and other users in this area. Should downtown redevelop and revitalize and there's 500 to 600 people walking in the downtown, how can we visually cue vehicles and trucks to watch for pedestrians and bicyclists and move at an appropriate speed for that interaction?
Good, you convinced me.
Thank you.
Why do I get so much opposition I hear from truckers? You know, the big 18-wheel people that are taking stuff from the coolers and trying to get it to the 101. They don't like this. Why?
I can't speak for them, but I would assume that it would be the frequent stops and the high volume of other vehicles and other uses in that area. They might prefer another route or a experience where they had less lights, less friction, less conflict points. We are going to work for this very reason with Caltrans on studying of future traffic or truck movements and routes to see if there are maybe alternate routes in the city that would be better routes for both the goals of what the downtown plan is trying to achieve, but also for the truckers and these businesses to find their routes that are easiest for them. We plan on engaging with the trucking community and talking to them about their needs, what maybe other streets are deficient that we could improve to help with that, and start that dialogue to see if that's feasible.
One more thing, bicycles. I've tried to ride my bicycle occasionally on Broadway and Main Street, and you take your life in your hands if you try that. The only safe way to negotiate it is to go on the sidewalk where it's against the law. Now we've got some nice bike pathways proposed, yet 1 block outside of the city center, they just dump right back onto what was there before. Is that a problem?
Roger can speak more to that because we are looking at a comprehensive bike plan for the entire city.
Thank you, Netta. With our, the review of our active transportation plan, we're going to be looking into that. Part of the direction that we've given our consultant, we're having our kickoff meeting next week, is to treat the downtown as kind of the hub of the wheel or the core, and to create spokes out to the rest of the community. So we want to connect the community and create those connections. As you say, creating bike facilities on Main and Broadway without connecting it to anything is certainly not a good idea. It would require people to drive to the downtown so they can get their bike out of their truck and then they can ride around the downtown and then put their bike back in the back of the pickup. It's not what we're trying to do here. So we will be working with Caltrans to potentially put some bike facilities on the remainder of Main and Broadway, and then also make the connections at the outskirts at perhaps some bike facilities on Cook, on Fessler, down Pine Street. Some of these roadways are pretty wide, wider than they need to be at this point, so there's no reason why we can't put some sort of bike facilities to make that connection.
Thank you, Roger.
There's a whole bike path plan, and just go down to Public Works, you can take a look at it. It's there. It's just a matter of getting Caltrans and start doing all these changes and get it all implemented. Ms. Waterfield.
I want to thank you, first of all, for working on this plan. You guys have been at it for such a long time, and with a lot of input. You did great in regards to doing what the community asked you to do. But with that, I still have concerns. I've always, and Netta, you know this, I've always been that voice that this is State Highway 166 and Main Street. We do have big rigs going through these areas, and so I don't know how effective an education program is going to be on these big rigs that want to get from point A to B, as Councilmember Moat said, as quickly as you can. I know sometimes I get upset because cars go too slow. And that could be anywhere in the city of Santa Maria, and it drives me crazy sometimes. But I like what we did with Lincoln. I like what we did with Pine. What concerns me about Broadway and Main, and it may have a sense of that as well on Pine and Lincoln, is a false sense of safety that we're giving our pedestrians, because these are state corridors and people are going to use them like they've always used them before. And so I don't want to create a false sense of safety for a lot of people that want to do something like this. The city council gets every Monday our traffic conditions, and we have a lot of hit and runs. And a lot of them are really sad. You know, any hit and run is sad, but still, I don't want to create that in that area. And I think that's something that maybe you can work with our PD department in regards to how do we avoid these type of things, if that all is possible in these areas. And then I know we're talking about rerouting the semis, but what gets me with this is the state pays for the maintenance of 166 and Broadway. If we reroute the big rigs to be on city streets, then we have to pay for the maintenance. And so that is a huge cost to the city of Santa Maria as well. So there's good and bad in all of this, but I've always been that voice looking out for, what's best for everybody, cost-wise or safety-wise as well. We just have huge streets there, and you guys have done such a great job in doing what you're doing. But I think, with this concept, it is a concept to look at it, and from what I understand, we make corrections along the ways. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and that's what the traffic study will reveal to us as well. And maybe Caltrans will say, this is too scary to do. This is something we can't do, and then we have to go back to item A all over again. Okay, Those are my concerns.
Ms. Soto, any comments?
Well, as Councilmember Waterfield said, thank you so much for putting so much time and energy into this plan. And I mean, I love the presentation, how it's both in English and Spanish. From what it looks like, you all did a great job of really engaging the community. And a lot of the conversations that I've heard, especially during the campaign trail, were around revitalizing the downtown and making Santa Maria more walkable and bikeable. And part of that is this plan. And also continuing and moving forward with the integrated pedestrian and bike plan that the mayor was speaking of earlier. And so I, for one, am really excited to see us moving forward. And to also hear what Santa Marians, their vision for our downtown. I think that's what's really, really exciting. And I want that would be.
You know, I've gone to these focus group meetings from the time I was a young woman, and every time they'd have them, I would go. And it's always pretty much the same. People really want that vibrant downtown. And even though there's been so many years in span that we've been studying this and looking at it, it's pretty much what people really would like to see at Main and Broadway. And what's interesting is when we were putting this together at Shepherd Hall, it was almost like a jungle with the landscaping that people were putting in there. And I thought that was very interesting. And I do think that traffic calming works, and we've seen it work in so many communities. I wanted to ask you a question. When do we expect the mixed-use project that's across from the Boot Barn to start?
So they have submitted for building permits, and they have gone through one round of review already. They're
Okay.
working on those corrections to resubmit. So they are still actively moving forward and in the process.
Okay, thank you. And then what is the timeline on the traffic study?
We have a consultant lined up already. They're ready to go. I spoke with them today. We're probably spend the next couple of months, starting in a couple of weeks. We can't really do traffic studies right now. We've been in the holidays for the past month and a half. We got to get the schools back in and then give it another couple of weeks to kind of
That's right.
stabilize. And then we'll start doing traffic counts. They're going to analyze truck trips, truck percentages, all that stuff, data gathering for the next couple months, and then they'll be doing the study. So we're on track probably, by the middle of the year to have it completed and have it ready for review. Probably,
Thank you.
hopefully soon.
And and maybe this is a question for Ms. Parsons, but when do we expect the 135, the repaving on the 135? Good evening, Ms. Parsons.
Good evening, Mayor Patino and
Person.
council members. My name is Terry Persons with the Planning Department at Caltrans District 5. To answer your question on the paving project, we're looking at construction probably in the spring of 2022 on the pavement project, and that's something we're working closely with the city on and looking at what are some of the improvements and different along the corridor. For the public that's not familiar with this project, it's pretty much the length of Broadway, which is Highway 135, so it goes from Lakeview Road all the way north until Broadway goes to 101. So that entire stretch of the roadway will be repaved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a
Ms.
question
Waterfield?
for you. And what about Main Street? Is that the one that was set for the summer of 2020?
I don't have information on a project on Main Street in terms of are you thinking there's a pavement
Well,
project?
I just saw a date and I thought, since you said it was spring of 2022, there was a date up there for I thought was Broadway for summer of 2020. So maybe that was Main Street, I don't know.
Roger.
But my
Is there a
question to
slide?
you is, how do you educate the big truckers of rerouting their trips to a destination? Does Caltrans send something out, or is that out of your purview, Caltrans' purview?
It's mostly out of our purview. It's up to the trucking companies. I think there are a lot of opportunities to work with the trucking companies and look at how do they choose to route their vehicles through the community. I think there's a lot of opportunities, especially with technology that the trucking companies are using, where they find what is the most efficient route. If something changes on the route, they might shift where they tell their drivers to go. And I'm not familiar with the trucking companies, but I would assume some of them, before the truck leaves, they tell them what route they're going to take, because it's the most efficient. It might limit the number of left turns they need to make. Some trucking companies limit those types of turns because they present more opportunity for conflict. So, but we're not able to restrict them from a roadway. There's certain criteria that would need to be met. Say, for example, you have a narrow, windy road that the long trucks can't actually navigate safely, then they can be restricted from that type of road. So that's something would be looking at, working with the companies that are either businesses here in Santa Maria or they're coming to Santa Maria, and figuring out what are some of the options for them in terms of their route, and also possibly what time of day are they going to be coming through, because obviously that's going to affect what the speeds are and what kind of traffic they're going to encounter.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a question, Dr. Moats?
Well, I was just wondering, the Caltrans funded this study, and now the study's completed and we have a nice brochure. What does Caltrans think about the result? Not that you can necessarily say what Caltrans thinks about it, but, you know, if we're going to be restriping all the streets, we're going to be restricting right-hand turns, and now we're going to be putting parking on these major thoroughfares when we don't have it now, is it going to fly?
Well, the study, the program that this study was funded by was a Sustainable Communities Program. So it's looking at how can you design or redesign your roadway system to accommodate all users. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to accomplish, is looking at vehicles as well as pedestrians and bicyclists, and the type of people that are in the community. So also people that have limited mobility, also the transit, the buses that could be serving the route. So looking at all users, so the system can provide for safe movement for all users. And one of the key things with this type of study and developing a community plan like this is to get input from the community and involvement early on in the process. So when you are ready to go forward and, for example, go after maybe an active transportation plan or active transportation grant to construct your improvements, that you can show you have community support. So when you go to build your project, it's going to be well received, and it's going to work for the community that it's in. So we were actively involved, obviously, with this grant, not only because we manage the grant, but also because it's on our facility. So anytime we have a grant that involves one of our facilities, we're even more so involved than typical with administering the grant. So we think it was a well-done project. It had excellent community outreach and involvement, and that's really critical to having an effective plan.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Ms. Persons? Okay. Thank you very much, Terry.
Thank you.
And thanks, Nada. That was a great presentation. Madam Clerk, do we have any written correspondence?
No written communications.
Okay. So I'll open up the public hearing. Do we have any requests to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have 8.
8. Okay. Kathy Sharam, followed by Carlos Escobedo, followed by Ken Huff, followed by Jeannie Sparks. Good evening.
Oops.
Yes, 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Again, my name is Kathy Sharam. I live at 416 East Hermosa Street, which is in the northeast of the downtown, just northeast of the downtown area. And I'm speaking to express my support for the downtown streetscape concept plan. I have attended the meetings and took part in some of the walkabouts, and I have to thank the city staff for all of their hard work and honest efforts to reach out to everyone in the city. They did an excellent job, and I think the concept is beautiful, it's functional, and it's greatly needed. Our downtown needs to be more pedestrian and bicycle friendly, and this is a great start. I don't know how many times I've seen mothers with strollers, I've seen the disabled and small kids walking home from school that are really at the mercy of the traffic stopping in order to let them cross the street. So, and I've also seen lots of pedestrians scurrying across streets where there are crosswalks and trying to make sure they make it before their allotted time is finished. So I would love it if the city would begin to send a message that we are more than just a city for cars and trucks, that our downtown is a place to spend time with our family and friends. I fear that we've been more concerned with attracting people to the outskirts of our city, to the detriment of our downtown, and the number of vacant buildings keeps growing. And one example is Blaze Pizza. They opened up a Blaze on Enos Ranch, and now the one in the north end of town is closed. So I urge you to approve this tonight to help make our downtown more safe and more usable.
Thank you. Carlos Escobedo, followed by Ken Huff. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Miss. Wow, Mayor, thank you, and City Council members and City of Santa Maria. I'm Carlos Escobedo. I'm the coordinator of Santa Maria Open Streets. So today I'm coming to express my, I'm pretty happy that this event is happening March 31st. That's the advertisement, by the way. And just want to say thank you. Thank you for different departments that had given us support to making a Downtown Friday, Downtown Open Streets more happening, and I want to express my support in making a better downtown. A downtown that it's where everyone feels safe to walk around, to ride their bikes. I try to ride my bike, trying to picture how open streets, we're going to close Main Street for the first time in the history of Santa Maria, by the way. It was just approved by the city, and thank you for that. Also Caltrans, thank you for the support. And I tried to ride my bike. I was about to being run over like 3 times in half a block. It's incredible, and I had the opportunity of working for the city of Guadalajara back in Mexico doing the Via Recreativa. This is an event where we close the 3 main avenues of the 3 biggest cities in the state of Jalisco. We're talking about attendance of 2 million people every week, every Sunday. So having something like that here in Santa Maria, I'm shocked because I have seen the potential of what we have, all the organizations, the businesses that are getting together, and the city giving support to that, and it's just awesome. And I would like to talk about some organizations that it's giving support. We have the Santa Maria High School Union, Bonita, Allen Hyckop College, Foursquare Church, YMCA, the SBCAG, Farmers Working Union, by the way, that March 31st is Cesar Chavez Day, and we're celebrating what he did for this community because we sometimes take it for granted what a great person like him did for us. We're taking this time to really celebrate what he did for all of us. So thank you for your time, and looking forward to see you all there, and thank you again for everything that you have given us, all the support, looking forward to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Huff, followed by Jeannie Sparks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm Ken Huff, representing the Santa Barbara County Action Network, or SBCAN. For 17 years, we've been advocating for safer and more efficient transportation, among other things like affordable housing, protecting open space. The staff and many of our volunteers attended the workshops, and I have to say, this is a great-looking concept plan. It's very responsive to the comments that were made by the community. Beautiful-looking crosswalks, maybe gold-plated. They're beautiful. For years, we've been advocating for any crosswalks, in particular, right out here in front of City Hall. I've been here for years saying this, and there's still not a crosswalk out here. There's a signal head that tells you when to walk, and sometimes there are many people leaving from an event here, but there's no paint. And I know a guy who's he's legally blind, Barry Stotts, and he got bumped by a car as making a right turn onto Cook from Broadway. And he fell down. He wasn't seriously injured. But I mean, it's right here in front of City Hall. We need to do better. Up and down Broadway and up and down Main, there are so many places where it should be safer to cross. So I hope that this will be approved and it will be built, and that it'll be a catalyst to do this up and down these main streets of ours. To do this, it is going to be essential to reduce the lane widths, and some of them are pretty darn wide. And if you take a foot or a couple of feet out of those lane widths, you're going to accomplish certain things. One, you're going to reduce the speeds of the cars and the trucks, and you're going to make it a shorter distance for people to get across, so they'll be able to get across safely. So as to slowing down the speeds, we're talking about big rigs. So, I met a guy, we were out, and he was loading strawberries he took them to Florida. And after he loaded them up, and we were getting some free strawberries from our friend for an event, and the guy was driving to Florida. I don't think it was going to matter to him if it took him an extra minute or two to go the 2 miles to 101. I think the people who are in a hurry are the people that are in town, they're trying to get, you can get anywhere in 10 or 11 minutes. Well, I want to get there in 10 minutes, not 11. So take a deep breath and slow down, everybody. Okay, so bus stops. In the concept plan, I didn't see any bus stops in these few blocks. SMAT has bus routes that run on Main, both East Main and West Main. I've ridden them and I've wanted to get off, and you can't get off. There's no bus stops. So maybe a few of the parking places, the on-street parking that are shown in the concept plan, maybe could be traded out to have an actual bus stop right in the center of downtown. I mean, you have to kind of go around the corner and way down over here in order to get to the point where you can get off the bus.
Thank you, Mr. Huff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeannie Sparks, followed by Ruben Esparza.
Good evening, I'm Jeannie Sparks, and I'm also with Santa Barbara County Action Network. And I was with Supervisor Tom Ravansky when he worked for the county. And he told me that when he had been on the city council, years before that, he had talked about livable communities. And the same concepts, sustainability, walkability. And it takes a while for things to get implemented. But that was more than 20 years ago. And then as we were working for the county of Santa Barbara, he was the 5th District Supervisor, we also talked about these concepts. And then it's really exciting to see how they were implemented on McClellan Street and other things that have been done in other communities around the Central Coast. You can go to different places and you see green striped bike lanes. You see in Arroyo Grande, the village of Arroyo Grande, it's more walkable. They've got places to park now. They've narrowed the lanes. Big rigs go through there, but you can sit out at a restaurant on the sidewalk, and it's okay. It's not so noisy because the traffic calming slows that traffic down. You don't really want to sit on Main Street and eat out at a restaurant because it's way too noisy. So if you were to slow the traffic down, the big rigs could still go through, but they'd go through slower. And your other speeding vehicles, Miller and Battles, too often I've heard a car crash right there because they're going through so quickly. We need to calm down the traffic there too, and on College, and make it safer for pedestrians. I've ridden my bike around here and been afraid that I was going to get hit. I love my bike, but I cheated a few times and I went on the sidewalk, and especially where the roads get too narrow, like right past Miller Street. And there's not a safe place for bicycles most of the areas around here, but there are some. And the city has done a lot. So this is just another step, I think, in the city's progression. And I want to thank you guys for looking at this, thank the staff and the city council, because you are looking forward, and I think this is where we need to go. These concepts take a while, but I think now is the time. We need to do that. And there's just something else about today. 5:44 this morning, it reported by the Santa Maria Times and their breaking news alert this afternoon saying that another pedestrian was hit. Major injuries. Should survive, but it's an ongoing thing, and you keep hearing about it more and more often. So we need to do traffic calming measures, not just in the downtown, but other places. But this is a good place to start. It'll help revitalize the downtown. It'll make it more interesting. I would like to go there more. And I also just want to promote the open streets as well. I think this is a great concept. Guadalupe did it a few years ago. Lompoc has done it the last couple of years. This will be the first time that the street that West Main Street will be closed between Broadway and Blosser. And the city's been supporting that. Great, thank you guys. Caltrans supports it. And if you haven't been to Open Streets before, they're really fun. There's a lot of activities going on there, a lot of community groups. If you have a community group, get involved, call Carlos. And this is the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. Ruben Esparza. Yes. Ruben Esparza, followed by Scott Kramer.
And that was Ruben Espinoza.
Espinoza?
It's my handwriting, don't worry, not you. So I'm here to represent Corazón del Pueblo, the new Cultural and Creative Arts Center in Santa Maria.
Oh, okay.
We are located in the downtown area, so, we have interest in having the downtown more vibrant. One of the side notes that I do want to bring up is that a lot of the tenants in the downtown area, they've stuck with Santa Maria, the downtown area, through thick and thin. And hopefully you guys look at the long run and kind of implement a rent ordinance for those tenants that have stuck out through there. In case there's development later on down the road, that tends to squeeze people out. But other than that, I think it's a great plan. It's a great start. This has been ongoing for you guys. So yeah, we just want to show our support and appreciation for what you guys have done. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Kramer, followed by Pam Catatano. Good evening.
Good evening. Scott Kramer, is it my turn?
It is your turn.
I think it was my turn. With Certified Freight Logistics, we're a trucking company here on the west side of town. We run 150 trucks. And I'm here tonight. I just found out about this concept about a month ago. We were able to put a meeting together with Nita and her folks to express our concerns, and not so much that we're going to slow traffic down a main street, but the safety aspect from trucks. If we're going to narrow those lanes down, we're concerned about the safety of our trucks around other motorists and around pedestrians. I'm looking at some of the bulbs that want to put out, and we want to close the traffic, shorten crosswalks. If trucks are making a right or left-hand turn, that's putting the pedestrian out in the turn radius of the truck. And we just want to make sure that all those things are accounted for in the plan moving forward. I think that I've got some interest in getting together again at some point to make sure all those concerns are looked at diligently. As far as Caltrans traffic studies, I would recommend that we look at peak produce season, strawberry season. When are peak trucks? If we're not doing the traffic studies at the right time of year, we're not going to get the right results. So, I ask that we really look at those concepts going forward. I mean, we certainly don't fault wanting to do something downtown and to beautify that and revitalize it, but it needs to be done in the right way and that trucks can move safely. The unintended consequence is we're pushing them off of Main Street onto other streets. My big concern is they end up down Stoll to Black Road out to 166 West, and they're trying to make a left to get to Guadalupe. That's just an extremely unsafe intersection already. And if we push more trucks out that way, we've got an even bigger issue on the outside of town. So with that, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pam Catalano. Did I pronounce your name right?
Yes, it is.
Oh, good for me.
Hi, I'm Pam Catalano. I've lived in Santa Maria for 20 years. I'm here to advocate for the drivers of Santa Maria. I do enjoy going to the mall, which is a destination for all of us, and I object to the bike lanes being combined with the traffic. I think Santa Maria drivers are not the safest in the world. I live in River Oaks, which has a bike trail on the levee, and my friend's son was hit by a car when there's only one car on the road per hour, and he was still hit on his bicycle. And I would rather see the bike lanes separated from traffic and reroute the bicycles around the city, and then maybe a feeder line into the parking lot at the West Side Mall. And that way, the bikes will be safe, they'll be removed totally from the traffic, and you wouldn't have to reduce the lane widths or the turning lanes, and we could still get to the mall, and the trucks could still drive on 166 and 135. So you were saying that there was a bike plan, a comprehensive bike plan for this town. I would rather see it like the European model where they, in Netherlands, I rode bikes in Netherlands and Belgium, and they're totally separated from the roads by at least 10 feet. So it keeps the drivers safe and it keeps the bicycles safe. So we have plenty of open space to put bike lanes around the outskirts of the city with feeder lines into the mall. And I have studied city planning. I grew up in Orange County, and that was the model plan, seeing Irvine grow up from agricultural to the city, but they have bike lanes through their green belts. And I don't see many green belts here, but that would be a new concept to make Santa Maria more pedestrian and bike-friendly, and still keeping the roads for the drivers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'll close the public hearing, bring this item back to the council for discussion or motion. Any more discussion?
We did hear a lot of great comments, and I think this is, my thought is that a plan does need to go forward for the city of Santa Maria. We've been talking about this for a long, long time. It is a conceptual plan. So with all of the ideas that we've heard here, that is still, that is open for study to do this. I did not think about the bulb outs with the large rigs, and that's something that's really very important to do that, and pushing them out to other roads that might be hard for them to turn as well on the radius. I never rode my bike downtown because I just stay out on the levee because there's no traffic out there, so I know I'm safe out there. But I think this is something that needs to go forward as a conceptual plan where we can add to or take out as we see this. Now, as we go in the conceptual plan, will there still be more open meetings to discuss as we go along?
So as we move forward with this and study it, it kind of goes from the realm of planning to the realm of public works and that process. There will still be a lot of discussion at public meetings, and we are certainly more than welcome to hold more workshops and discuss some of the results of that traffic study and the plan moving forward.
Okay, and in regards, Mr. Kramer had a really good point in the traffic study about the produce season, and that's something that to get an accurate study, and I don't know what is the produce season here in Santa Maria, because we always see produce trucks, so I don't know if it's heavier during one strawberry season, whether it is broccoli or the other. I know where I live, there's a bunch of strawberry fields that need to go in town, so that's something that we really need to look at when we do a traffic study to get an accurate count.
That is something we'll certainly look into, and then also, as part of, to elaborate on what Netta just said as far as future public hearings, or public meetings, with our active transportation plan, we will be presenting.
Oh, great.
There's going to be a very robust public outreach with that as well. So we'll be reaching out, and then it's actually the same firm that got the ATP study is the same firm that was working with our consultant, and we'll be doing some of this traffic study. So we're working with the same folks. So there will be some opportunity for public to be in that discussion as well. The objective of the study is to determine what elements of this plan will work. Caltrans is not going to let us put something in that's going to create gridlock or just not going to work for vehicles, pedestrians, or anybody else. Their priority is the same as ours as far as safety. They want to make sure they have a safe facility. That includes pedestrians, bikes, and vehicles. So that's what we're trying to determine is what of these elements will work and what can we do. And then once we determine that with the study, then we will move forward with some sort of catalyst project, some sort of concept plan, or more of a concept plan, but actually move into design to actually build something.
Okay, and so the only way we do that is to move this forward tonight, to make sure that you guys can go ahead, Caltrans can go ahead, the study can go ahead, because I think
That's correct.
we've studied, and staff has done a great job. Netta, you've done an exceptional job in putting this together. And so if there's no more comments, or do you have comments?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to congratulate staff. I think you've done a great job. And I think downtown Santa Maria could approximate some of the color pictures you have in the brochure. We look like Carmel. I mean, it's beautiful. So, I'm all for it. Want me to make the resolution there, or you?
I'll be happy to, if there's no other comments.
No, and this has been, I think when Hilda was on the council, and we designated what kind of businesses we wanted to go downtown, and we were not going to let them go out on Enos Ranch, because Enos Ranch was on the drawing board at the time. So it's not like it's replaced anything that's going downtown. We've got certain things that we just saved for the downtown, and the big box and stuff was going out at Enos Ranch. So there'll be two different types of...
Downtown, absolutely.
Two different types of retail and other businesses downtown. So that's the only comment. Go ahead, Dr. Motzer.
With that, I would like to make the recommendation that the City Council accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and by resolution adopt the downtown multi-modal streetscape conceptual plan.
I'll second that.
It's been moved in second to adopt the downtown multimodal streetscape concept plan. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Waterfield?
Aye.
Councilmember Moat?
Aye.
Councilmember Soto?
Aye.
Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. Next item of business is regular business item. We don't always get applauses, so we don't know how to react to that. Thank you. The next item is a regular business item. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will receive a status report on fireworks in the City of Santa Maria.
The staff report is to be made by Assistant City Manager, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. This evening, we are talking about issues surrounding fireworks here in the City of Santa Maria. As we're all aware, an Independence holiday is celebrated across the country. In many places, a traditional component of that is, in lots of communities, is igniting of fireworks in individual, family, and neighborhood settings. Here in California, just a matter of definition, what's legal in California in terms of individual purchased and ignited fireworks are what's called safe and sane fireworks. These are things that can emit loud noises and showers of sparks. They are not the sort of things that explode or are designed to launch into the air. In other parts of the country, those things are legal. Here in California, they are not, with the exception of fireworks shows, but we're talking about the individual uses tonight. What we discovered over the last Independence Day holiday was a number of complaints were being received here at this office, maybe several members of council as well, over the noise and other factors that were going on with fireworks. Both some of the complaints surrounding all fireworks, many of the complaints about the illegal fireworks. And it seems that over the last few years there's been quite an escalation in the use of illegal fireworks, not only here in this city, but around the state. So with heeding the concerns that we were hearing from citizens that were calling, we held two different community meetings, one in November and one in December, to get some feedback from individuals on what their concerns were, sharing their personal experiences, and also any suggestions they've had going forward. The complaints surrounded issues because of what I'd say are fireworks sensitive portions of the community. People with animals that were not, pets that were not reacting well, or small children, or people that suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. Those sorts of folks were especially having challenges from all the noise. Furthermore, here in this city, we limit, even with safe and sane fireworks, when those can be fired off. We basically allow for a 12-hour time period on July 4th only, from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Having already experienced some of these issues from past years, leading into this past July 4th, our city spent over $5,000 doing some public relations notices, asking people, reminding them of what the laws are and asking them to be good neighbors. And also we produced and handed out signs, yard signs that could mark where those homes were that had fireworks sensitive residents. As a result of one of the things we discovered in the course of this examination of the different issues were not only categorizing some of these experiences that were negative, but categorizing some of the positive experiences, that some families just enjoy the tradition of firing off fireworks, and the fact that many nonprofit groups within the community rely on fireworks and firework booth operations to be significant fundraisers for their organizations, and those organizations in turn around and do good things within the community. So with all that mixed together, we held those two meetings, and I want to talk about some of the suggestions that came from the public, because it's very challenging. We're very resource challenged, particularly on July 4th. A lot of people would like us, the police department, the fire department, other staff, to go out and just put a stop to this, to all this illegal activity at least. But the presence is just overwhelming our resources. There were, like this last July 4th, there were some 450 calls that the police department had on July 4th, including 338 calls for service. And we basically had about 8 officers out to cover all needs of the community. So when you have to go prioritize your calls and triage your calls, it leaves you with very little resources left to be able to enforce on fireworks issues. Additionally, just by virtue of the fact that it's dark and you've got other safe and sane fireworks going on, and the rigors of our prosecution to ensure due process, that it's difficult sometimes to get a citation in place that is going to hold up through prosecution. It's a difficult thing to catch people in the act. So with that, we had the meetings, and these suggestions came from the public of some of the things that we might be able to do. There was train and enable a volunteer civilian patrol to assist enforcement. We had citizens that were willing to give up a portion of their evenings on July 4th to be able to patrol around, not for them to intervene directly or to try to physically stop the activity, but to at least be able to identify and alert law enforcement or fire as to what's going on at a particular location. It was suggested by some to increase the amount of fines for illegal fireworks, suggesting that some maybe we haven't yet hit the threshold of the level that gets people's attention that are dealing in these illegal fireworks. There was suggested more education for the care of pets on July 4th, that it takes there's a different way you should care for your animals on that day versus other days. It was suggested we require educational flyers to be handed out with the fireworks as they're sold in the booths, and in fact, many organizations apparently already do that. There was a discussion to reduce the hours that fireworks can be fired on July 4th from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. and shorten that time frame to, let's say, 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. There's some discussion about a cell phone app, smartphone app that's available called Nail 'em that can give coordinates of where location is. So if you take a picture of illegal fireworks going off and that's relayed to the appropriate authorities, then it can show a picture and succinctly mark a location. Again, though, we need resources to be able to then respond to that. The suggestion was to build and maintain a database for firework offenders and suspects, and then focus patrols on those particular areas where we have repeat offenders rather than trying to cover necessarily the whole city at once. To also suggest that maybe we reduce the enforcement criteria, making prosecution easier rather than having two witnesses, maybe drop that down to one, or maybe be able to use someone's cell phone picture as evidence. There was also discussion about consider a finder's fee to pay to report to those people that report illegal activity, and I assume also have successful prosecution with that. It was also suggested that the Shumash fund the building of a Strawberry Bowl event center or some sort of event center that can be used for a public fireworks show, and maybe tailgate safe and sane in advance. So those people that want to be part of a fireworks activity, they have a place to go and be there and I guess move some of that noise out of the neighborhoods. While I didn't detail in my report, there is some suggestions also around amending our ordinances to focus more on the host of the locations of where illegal fireworks are rather than the people. In other words, if you were unable to identify the person, but you could identify the location, but then you concentrate on the property owner as being the person to be cited. And that was a suggestion that came up in the course of this. So there's been, first of all, I appreciate all the citizens that came out and participated. It was obvious they were very passionate with their positions. At both meetings, I was extremely impressed by the respect that was shown for everybody that was speaking. That while this was an important topic for them, everyone operated with appropriate decorum and spoke from their heart and spoke with good minds on not just trying to identify what the problems are, but trying to bring solutions to the table. And so with that, concludes my initial report. What staff is looking for is if you have further direction for us, we'd love to hear what that is. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Weimiller from here? Yeah.
Sure.
Dr. Moats?
Pat, what's worked in other communities?
Well, it's very challenging in other communities that I've been involved in. This is the fourth city I've worked for, and in other communities I've been in, we have similar challenges in trying to get around to suppress that. It really takes just a lot of resources to be able to concentrate on that. I have noticed, though, that lately, both here and in other communities, we've really seen quite the uptick of illegal fireworks. I can't tell you a the scientifically proved reason for that. I have my own personal theory, and my own personal theory to that is about the time that the state was undergoing its own financial challenges through the recession, that they defunded the inspection at border entries of a lot of the trucks that formerly went on, and that seems to coincide with the timing of a lot of the importation here. So a lot of other communities, Dr. Moats, are doing similar processes we are now, trying to figure out, well, some will eliminate fireworks altogether with the hopes that that having all activity made illegal would help to be able to identify where the activity is going on. I don't know if that's had that much success. There are others that say having safe and sane fireworks available helps to minimize the alternate illegal fireworks that would be available. I don't know that other communities were doing as much proactive public education as Santa Maria was doing. I think we've done more to do the advanced outreach and try to get people to be good citizens than I've seen in other communities.
Yes, I was wondering if there was any information about the number of injuries related to fireworks here in the city of Santa Maria, or number of ER visits here in the city of Santa Maria related to fireworks.
It's really been pretty minimal. We've had 2 walk-ins in ER in the last 2 years where they've self-identified that their injuries or burns were from fireworks related. We really haven't had any active fire events that we would link to being fireworks caused. So that aspect we've been fortunate enough has been minimized.
Yeah.
What about fire? Fire, actual building fire?
We have one citizen that shared a picture, and I'm not sure if they were within the confines of the city or not. I just don't recall. My apologies. But had their shrub along their front fence had been burnt as a result of an illegal firework, probably going up, coming down, and starting something up. Outside of that, we really don't have any records that I'm aware of calls. Well, maybe the chief has different information now.
Thank you, Pat, for the report. So yes, there has been, past couple of years, minor injuries walk into the ER at Marion Hospital. And as far as call volume, we haven't seen a drastic rise in our calls. We run about 28 to 30 calls a day here in Santa Maria, and around the 4th of July, we were hitting around those same numbers. As far as fires, minor brush fires, grass fires, dumpsters, and about 4 or 5 years ago, we did have a structure fire related to fireworks. Other than that, it's been fairly minor.
Yeah, I did see the residence where they had the sort of a hedge bush around the house, and the gentleman called me, and I went out to take a look at it, and I was amazed that he wasn't more excited about this than he was, because to me, if I had been inside that house and I had seen this bush out here on fire, and I thought it was very frightening. Okay. Ms. Waterfield?
Thank you, Chief. I was just going to add, though, I think that our call volume, though, with the police department has been quite a bit of an uptick, to the point that it just, again, overwhelms our resources on that particular.
I do have a request from residents of the Pioneer Village that to change the location from the Ron Edwards Event Center in that grassy area. Where they placed the band was up against the residence wall, and it just permeated all throughout Sculptors and Pioneer Village, and I think we need to look at a different location possibly away from the city, and I don't know where that would be. But I do have a question for our police chief, and I don't know, could we do undercover bike patrol out in certain areas that have been heavy with the fireworks in the past?
Well, I'm willing to try anything.
Yeah.
It's, as Wayne Miller said, it's very problematic. And it's, on a typical night, tonight, I have 8 officers out on patrol.
Mm-hmm.
And we are staffed to handle a normal call volume, what comes in. I could even double that, and that doesn't approach being able to deal with 400 calls for fireworks, that sort of thing. And I would ask you to have a mental picture of something. You're on patrol in a marked black and white vehicle. You get a call of a firework that's gone off, and by definition, by the time they call, it's already gone off. So that's assuming they're still going off. And you get on a street, and there's 50 people out in the street, and it's a dark street, and you're not going to go racing down the road, because we're not going to risk running some child over out there, something like that. They're going to see you coming. By the time you get down there, if you don't have somebody willing to say, that's the person that did it, and I'm willing to sign, there's really nothing that you can do from a prosecutorial standpoint. So it's very challenging, it's very frustrating to us, obviously. And sure, we can try anything, but I want them to be readily identified as police officers too. The last thing I would want to do is have people jumping out of a van or something like that.
Absolutely.
Now you're going to risk a confrontation with people over fireworks. And as big a problem as they are, there are still bigger priorities, and I have concerns about safety related to how we go about enforcing that. So that's just.
And I'm just assuming that this volunteer group would be willing to be around certain places where they do go off, and they can identify and do that whole
Yes, ma'am.
thing.
If that's the case, to do any good, they would have to be willing to be a witness to the event and sign to that.
Right.
And quite frankly, we have a fireworks hotline. A lot of the calls that we received, people were very put off when we wanted them to identify themselves. They wanted to do it anonymously, and that does no good from a prosecutorial standpoint again. And there is a danger. People are reveling on the 4th of July, they're maybe drinking, whatnot, and now you have a confrontation between some volunteers and some people out there that are having their fireworks. So there are a lot of considerations that we have to think about when we do something like that. And I worry about the well-being of the volunteers as well.
Absolutely. No, I understand your safety. And even for the New Year's, I was awakened to fireworks on New Year's. And so it's, it is a problem. It's not with the safe and sane, it's with the illegal ones. And it's, you've got to catch them in the act.
One more time, sir. With the passage of Measure U, the last thing I want to do is stand here and cry, pour on resources. I want to do everything I can to make an impact on this, and we will. We'll try anything that seems reasonable and seems safe for our officers, for the public, and for any volunteers or whatever that might be involved in that thing. And we'll up the ante on the thing this year and see what we can do. But it's a very pervasive problem. So
Well,
even if we triple the enforcement efforts, I can't, guarantee much in terms of results on a citywide basis.
Well, with that said, and it talks about the training of volunteers, civilian patrol, I would like you to explain to them the safety, the hazards of what could happen, the conditions of what you've run into with, on 4th of July and those types of situations. I would not want them going into this just cold.
Well, it's unfortunate, ma'am, because by definition, you're pitting neighbor against neighbor then at that point, too.
Yeah.
And I don't want to try to solve a problem by creating a bigger one in terms of confrontations between people out there. So I'm just bringing forth some of the realities of why this is such a difficult problem.
Right, and I would think a meeting would have to be created so that all the volunteers can really assess what they're volunteering for.
You bet, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Councilmember Waterfield, I was going to add on your comment about the show that was at Pioneer Park. Early on in this process, we recognized we wanted to make this process about the individual use of fireworks, but I did address those complaints. I was receiving some as well. I expressed those to Director Posada, and he's indicated he has a different configuration for the coming year.
Any other questions here? Madam Clerk, do we have any correspondence?
We have no written correspondence.
Do we have requests to speak?
We have 4.
4. Thank you. Okay. Dave Willis, followed by Sherry Emo, followed by Louis Ling. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Dale Willis, but Mayor. I'm here on behalf of our church and nonprofits, and we're want to speak in favor of the Safe and Sane fireworks. I've been involved with Safe and Sane fireworks both here and over in the city of Lompoc for probably 7 to 8 years. And a couple of things I would like to say about them. One is the name Safe and Sane, and Mr. Weimiller was in Lompoc when we were over there. Safe and Sane is these are fireworks that do showers and sparkles, but they're not the projectiles that go up in the air and land on somebody's roof or land in a hedge, as you were talking about. I would also like to say that as a church and for nonprofits, which we had a nonprofit over in Lompoc, one of the major sources of income for the year was the fireworks 4th of July sales. And here in Santa Maria, with Victory Outreach Church, we have a men's home, a recovery home. And one of the main supports for that recovery home is the income that comes in from the fireworks. And I'm sure that the other nonprofits in our city have major support through the fireworks. In fact, some of the men that are in our recovery home are here today. And I won't ask them to stand, but there's several people here that are in the recovery home. Okay. All right. So,
by the way, that's a very awesome home. I had the opportunity, the mayor and I, to tour that, and you guys are just remarkable. Thank you so much for pursuing.
and one of the things that this helps us do is to provide that recovery experience at no cost to the men. So it has a very valuable benefit, and I would like to ask you to just compare that to the issues that are being raised today, because these are men that are changing their lives and then going back into society as productive men and women. One final thing that I would say is shutting down Safe and Sane fireworks, the people then, well, many of the people, or at least a percentage of the people, will be put in a position where rather than buying safe and sane fireworks, they will then be buying illegal fireworks, and you'll be adding to your problem rather than reducing it as you might think that you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willis. Sherry Imo. Sherry Imo, followed by Louis Ling.
Mayor, I'm Louis. Am I out of line to ask to go last?
Oh, no, that's fine.
Thank you, Mayor. I can call orders.
You probably all recognize me. I've been at all the meetings, and from what I hear from the police chief tonight, I almost feel like legal citizens that don't do anything, we're being held hostage by all these rebel rousers. And this doesn't make me feel safe in this city, that people that are not, and only having 8 patrols on a highly volatile night is just, it's unthinkable in the population of this town. So I don't have any qualms, and I think in part of the meetings that we didn't have any qualms with the people that are raising funds to do good. So that isn't our qualms. Our qualms is that we have these exploding things coming over our houses. And, you know, of course, our pets are frightened. But I can even deal with that. I can medicate them, you know, to where they're not so anxious or these anxious. But I fear for my safety if I walk out, it's something coming down on my house. And since I live near Rotary Centennial Park and I guess it's the Miramonte field there, I mean, they were hot spots. And I brought stuff to you at the beginning of this first meeting that showed all the debris that was laying on the ground from where this happened. And there's, on January 1st, like you said, there was stuff going over my house again. So I just don't feel safe and to live in this community. That's the end of my position.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. Leah Marie.
Hello, I'm back. I'm the one who recommended that the fire trucks with the big tanks of water just drive down the streets and hose them all down. I know we can't, but it's a great visual. Okay, I'm going to toot my own horn. Last 3 are my ideas, at least. Number 1, I know that the city council can change the city ordinance. I would like to see a city ordinance that deals with fireworks the way you deal with drugs. Possession. We have cell phones. We can do this. Number 2, finder's fee. Okay, call it whatever you want. I recommended that last time. When you find the person who committed the crime and they get a big fine, start at $2,500 and go up. They get a portion of that fine. Never comes out of our taxes, ever. Number 3, I called Shumash to find out if they could actually build a venue that we could use way out in the middle of nowhere in Santa Barbara County with great big asphalt areas where people could come and see the fireworks. They want to pay to see them fine. Now envision the entrance, and on the sides we have the open air vendors. And you got your Safe and Sanes, you've got your wineries, the restaurants, local arts and crafts, and they'd all be there. And they could be there throughout the year with all kinds of events going on. And everyone would win. Everyone would make money. Then we'd also have little colored tickets. And the tickets would denote which charity was going to get a portion of the entrance fee to the fireworks. Or their name on a ticket, something of that nature. But Shumash said no. They said it's you guys. So I thought the name Strawberry Bowl was just very appropriate for the venue. And I still think we could do this somehow. Maybe we can find a big, well-moneyed organization or group or something who'd like to come in and build a smaller venue so people didn't have to go all the way to Buellton and walk through all the secondhand smoke to see famous people perform. They could come closer to Santa Maria and support Santa Maria. If we're going to keep building hotels, there's your reason for the hotels. So this is those are some of my ideas. There were others up there, but I'm tooting my horn on the last three. And I'm not giving up. We can get that venue built somehow, some way, someone knows the right people. Thank you.
I always enjoy hearing you. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Lou Gillis.
Okay, Mayor and City Council, I am the president of the Central Coast Bowling Association and the chairman of the Rancho Junior Bowlers Fireworks Booth. We raise about $6,000 or $7,000 a year, which we use to pay entry fee into the county tournament and the state tournament for any kid that wants to bowl in it. And we also pay for the trophies in the county tournament. We also give a boy and a girl a $300 scholarship each year. You know, it appears that the safe and sane fireworks people are suffering for the illegal fireworks. We don't endorse the illegals either. It takes away from our business. We've cut down the number of hours that you can set off the stuff. You know, originally it was 6 days. Now it's down to 12. We've increased the city permit. 3 years ago it was $180. Now it's over $500. Last year in the sales that we did, I paid $2,236 in sales tax. I know some of that money comes to the city. So I'm recommending that we leave the safe and sane alone and attack the illegal stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Louis Ling.
Mayor and council, thank you. My name is Louis Linney. I'm a vice president of TNT Fireworks. You can kind of guess where I might be coming from. I would like to say that I was at the second town meeting that Mr. Weimiller hosted. One of my associates was at the first, and we both came back. I'm incredibly impressed by the level of coordination and respect between your residents. City staff, police and fire were both there. A lot of good input from the community, and it was quite unique. I had a couple things that struck me in questions from the council. Councilmember Moats, you asked probably the most pertinent question tonight is, what's worked? I can give you 3 cities that I've seen a reduction in. First would be Clovis, social host ordinance. That's what was brought up tonight. Change your ordinance so that you can cite the property owners, landlords, parents, regardless of if they were there, it happened in their house. Clovis has had success with that. Chino, huge success in Chino. About 10 years ago, they enacted a task force between police and fire. They also took the suggestion of large fines, really got after it. A couple of years in a row, I couldn't tell you what the population of Chino is, so if someone else knows, this might be helpful. I should have thought about that, but they were issuing $50,000 and $60,000 worth of fines. It has to be a coordinated attack. You have to get your district attorney on board, and the city council has to be behind it, because what will happen, I can guarantee you, is the first person that's fined $1,500 or $2,000 is going to come up here and he's going to say, I didn't know it was illegal. How am I going to get to work? I can't repair my car. And you're going to want to be generous, sympathetic folks, and you're going to say, oh, you didn't know, you didn't mean to, and we're going to forgive it. So it has to be a coordinated attack. What they've used was they keep taking that money and they keep putting that into the next year's enforcement. They've actually seen the fines now significantly drop because, like you would expect, word has gotten out. The other city that has had incredible success is with a product that we developed. I'm watching this because, God, I wish I could take this home. I have a teenage daughter. You don't know how many fights it would solve. But City of Manteca is used the NALM app, which also Mr. Weinmiller brought up. That's an app that we went out and developed precisely for cities like this so that there's a lot of different ways you can set it up. I'm not a technical genius, and I'm certainly not an attorney, but I can tell you that they are citing people as late as 30 and 45 days after the 4th of July based on the way they have the app set up. You can use it to where it's either just a picture that they can turn in later. You can set it up to go straight to a dispatch. You can set it up to go to a hotline. They now have their police department. That's how they file their reports, right from the field, as they use NALM. If you'll give me one moment, please.
I'd like to hear more what you have to
Thank
say
you.
for solutions here.
I specifically would, if NALM was somewhere you would want to go to, we have I would put whomever from your staff or a city attorney's office or fire in touch with our developer, our PR guy, who has been behind that. I know there's a lot of different directions that different cities have taken with that, and excuse me. And it opens up a lot of different options. A lot of it is all based on, of course, what your city staff has. We also know that it doesn't matter how much money you have, as I spoke real briefly to your police chief before, it's how many bodies do you have? You know, have all the money in the world, but if you've only got X number of police, unless you're going to forced overtime, you can't put them out there. You're not going to get deputy sheriffs to help because they're, one per how many thousand miles of Santa Barbara County chasing after illegals. I also want to tell you, I completely, in the industry's position, is that we completely agree with Assistant City Manager Weinmiller on what's been the start and what has been the problem. And it is, we're all fooling ourselves if we think this is a Santa Maria issue only. The growth of illegal fireworks in the state of California this is how I make my living, and I'm worried that someday it's going to put us out of business in some city because people like you folks hear fireworks, fireworks, fireworks. And again, what I want to compliment this city on, even the folks who were not thrilled with fireworks, they've been very specific and very determined in differentiating between legal and illegal fireworks. And like Councilwoman Waterfield mentioned, it's illegal when it's on New Year's Eve. There's nothing that's legal here. But the fireworks were only allowed to be sold June 28th through July 4th. So when you're hearing it on January 1st, it's illegal fireworks. The proliferation has absolutely coincided with the state walking away from their legally mandated responsibilities, all because of a lack of funds. So they have stopped interdiction. They have stopped disposal. Right now, a city calls and says, hey, I just confiscated fireworks and they're sitting in my fire department's bunkers. Legally, they're mandated to come and pick them up. The reality is they tell you no, because they don't have any place to put them either. Place put them or deal with them either. No longer, I'm really getting afield, but I apologize. We can't even legally dispose of fireworks in the state of California due to a Cal EPA ruling. So right now, when the state did confiscate $10 a pound to ship it to a disposal facility in Arizona or in Alabama, where they would then turn around and burn it. What sense that makes, I can't tell you, but this is California. There is a small light at the end of the tunnel. I'm also real happy, this is very, very early on, but in Governor Newsom's most recently proposed budget, meaning of like just last week, he is actually, for the first time since I've been in my position, which is 15 years, is proposing an ongoing general fund obligation to try and deal with illegal fireworks. He's actually, I believe it was to the tune of $3.6 million, which would fund not only a couple of positions back into the interdiction of fireworks, but also to start disposing of them. I think that's a very hopeful sign. Is that going to help you next year? Probably not. honestly, but could that be a start for the entire state? I mean, the last couple of years, I've been embarrassed to tell people I sell legal fireworks, because I drive home like everyone else does. I live in Fresno, California, where Mr. Weinmiller came from originally, and I drive by our big AAA stadium, and on one side, we've got the city-sponsored legal display going off. On the other side, we've got the good stuff. So it's just crazy. And where is it coming from? And then I'll be done. So again, I appreciate your time frame, but there's two parts. There's two places where we're seeing illegal fireworks come in. When I was a kid growing up, when we talked about illegal fireworks, we were talking about ladyfingers and bottle rockets from Ensenada. I wish that's what we had right now. We actually caught, back up for a second, other states allow consumer fireworks that go up to 300 feet in the air. California is nothing leaves the ground, as one of the other consumers said, 10 feet. Is what our sparks are limited to. So other states, federally approved fireworks can go up to 300 feet in the air out of mortar shells. That is sold legally right across our border in Pahrump. I think that's probably what Mr. Weinmiller was talking about, was we used to sponsor a state interdiction, just like you see for fruits and vegetables. That stopped 10, 15 years ago. So you can legally buy that product in Pahrump. The only thing you have to show them in Pahrump to purchase that, an out-of-town driver's license and an affidavit that you will remove it from the county within 24 hours. Can't make this stuff up, folks. Where do you think it's coming? It's all coming back into Southern California. We actually had some busts the last couple of years. You've seen serious gang-related activity moving illegal fireworks. Why? Highly profitable, and nobody cares. If you get caught with it, it's not a big deal. As profitable as illegal drugs are right now. We have seen containers. We're actually marking and tagging shipping containers out of China to try and track, because legally they come in here and then they have to be put on a bonded truck and taken out of state to wherever they're going. They're not even doing that anymore. We've tracked containers that just get offloaded and disappear right into warehouses in Southern California. So it's a huge problem. I commend this city, because I know this is a problem that you folks have struggled with. I've had communications with your past city manager, and I know that it's something that you folks have really, really worked on, and I give you a lot of credit for that, because I've seen many cities that have not focused on it and have gotten nothing but worse. So again, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you giving me extra time. If you have any questions, I got nowhere else to go, folks. Thank you very much.
I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions. Thank you for all the information. When you speak about a social host ordinance, it's probably long overdue here in the city of Santa Maria, and I know that Fighting Back is going to be working on something and bringing it here. I don't know about the large fines. Mr. Cinco, how far we can go if we get the okay from the DA's office?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you. The fines are based on what would be the equivalent criminal classification. If it's a misdemeanor, the fine is $1,000. If it's an infraction, it's less. We're comfortable and frequently do make $1,000 fines in the past. When we first started doing enforcement, we did criminal and administrative citations, each for $1,000. A lot of people didn't pay the administrative citations, and then the court dismissed the $1,000 criminal citations. The social host, we already have the ability to hold the owner of a home responsible for lighting off illegal fireworks. It would be nice to maybe have a special ordinance that dealt with fireworks specifically, but we do have that power, and we have done that on occasion.
Then could you check with the city of Chino and see how they're doing that and how they do their fines?
I wrote down all three
You did?
cities.
And you wrote down all three, okay.
And Mr. Patrick will be looking into that since he's
Okay,
taken over the
great.
firework responsibility for our office.
Okay. Any comments here from the dais? Ms. Waterfield?
Yes, I think once we find out how we can go ahead, because I believe Mr. Lenny said that It was city council, it was city attorney, and probably the prosecuting attorneys that we could work close with just to get, to make sure that we do something about this situation, because something does have to be done, and I really believe that an ordinance should be in the works with illegal fireworks, because we do want to protect the safe and sane. I don't want anything to happen to the safe and sane, because I know that many organizations, this is their only fundraiser to survive and make great things happen for that particular organizations or those particular organizations. So I would really like to look into some type of ordinance after you have done your research, and you can possibly bring it back to city council so that we can do something this year in regards to what we come up with. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but...
Dr. Moats?
Well, I pretty much agree with Councilwoman Waterfield. I also don't think we should eliminate legal fireworks. But whatever can be done by ordinance or whatever to discourage the use of illegal fireworks should be done. And on the 4th of July, is it possible to have more than 8 officers out? I mean, yeah, just, higher profile. Even if you don't arrest anybody, just let them know you're out. Yeah.
I used 8, that's what we have right this minute. We bumped that up for special occasions, obviously, and whatnot, but I just used it to illustrate the point that it is not it's not an inexhaustible supply. Even if you double that, which I can't do all the time, you're looking at 16 in a city of 120,000 people, give or take, and with that volume of calls, we can only hit so many of them. So that's why I use that number. But we will do everything, including a task force this year. I will take all the considerations, and we'll build a very robust enforcement arm. But I'm just trying to give some idea what the limiting factors are on that too, and the difficulty of the prosecution.
Thanks, Chief.
We're a city of almost 24 square miles, and so if you even had one officer per square mile, that still wouldn't be enough. But that's just my observation. Did you have anything to say, Mr. Wymiller?
I was reminded in response to Councilmember Moat's question about what other communities are doing, and Mr. Linney shared some of that, but we do have some nearby counties. I think there are 4 counties in California that have adopted the host.
Social host.
Yeah, right, including Ventura, which is fairly close. So I'll make sure I provide those to the city attorney as well.
Ms. Soto, did you have any comments?
Yes. There we go. Just hearing everybody's public comment remark made me think about a couple of things. Yes, I understand that for a lot of nonprofit organizations and for churches, this is their only fundraiser. But I also heard from the report that having even the safe and sane fireworks, that makes it a little bit more challenging for us, for our police officers, to be able to identify where the illegal fireworks are going off because of all of the commotion that's going on. So that's something that I want us to consider. And also, I did some research earlier today, and I found this very interesting statistic that back in 2014, sparklers alone accounted for more than a quarter of emergency room fire-related injuries in the United States. And so my concern, as an aunt of 2 young children, my concern comes back to the safety of our children, and then also thinking about our veterans. We earlier in the meeting we were recognizing our veterans, and my understanding is, and I could be wrong, but from the research from what I read, 1 out of 5 veterans who have served in Iraq and Afghanistan have been diagnosed with PTSD, and so I also want us to take that into consideration. And so at this point, I agree with our council members that we should be looking into what other cities are doing, what is effective in other cities. I know that on the Central Coast, we are one of the only cities, or please correct me if I'm wrong, are we the only city on the Central Coast that has AG?
Lompoc.
Okay, so then that's good to know because, I mean, okay, so thank you for clarifying. But I just, like I said, I want us to consider those factors and then also the fact that we are, I understand that, from, again, only 8 police officers on 4th of July patrolling, and I also want us to be realistic whether or not, even if we double up or have more officers out on patrol, will that be sufficient to be able to catch these individuals? And so I feel like I'm with more questions than with answers at this point.
Thank you. Do you have enough direction on what we'd like then, Mr. Weimiller? Mr. Seiko?
Yes, and just to recap, I believe what I'm
Okay.
hearing is we'd like to focus on sharpening the ordinance, include the host issues, but also just the focus of the enforcement, and going to work with the police department on their task force and having a higher level of available resources and response.
I'd like
on
to
that
see
issue.
how high we can go on fines. I think fines, when you get to people's pocketbook, it really scares them. So,
Yeah, well, we're working
Okay.
with the city.
Okay.
And I wanted to extend my thanks to the police department, fire department, and the city attorney's office have all been cooperating in this effort.
And one more thing, if we could work with Mr. Lenny in regards to that app of what we can do to sharpen the preciseness of these fireworks, these illegal fireworks, that would be great to do and see how it can come together with what we have at the city.
Thank you.
thank you very much. And yes, Ms. Soto?
Yes, I just want to make sure that I understood clarification. So the recommendation is, again, that you all will be looking into what other, as everything that you cited, but, and also looking into what other cities are doing as well?
Right,
before
we're
we
going
come up-
to
okay,
adapt off
thank
of
you.
their host ordinance, particularly focusing on host ordinance, but anything else that they're doing in terms of enforcement's been successful, we're willing.
So this will be an ongoing conversation that we will be having? Okay.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Mr. Lenny, because that gives us some idea in which direction to go and where to get some answers. Thank you. The next item is another regular business item. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will consider an ordinance making various technical amendments to the Santa Maria Municipal Code relating to personnel, business license requirements for transportation network company drivers, vicious dogs, public parking structures, parking on public property, and bicycles on public property.
And, okay, so the staff report is to be made by, it's not Mr. Weimiller,
Mr. Patrick, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Patrick, okay?
Good evening, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
Council members. So my staff report today is on the 2019 proposed technical amendments
here's
to the
Mr.
Santa Maria
Patrick.
Municipal Code. As a bit of background, this is something that the city's been doing for the past almost 20 years. Every year, the city looks at the code for typos, grammatical errors, things that we can clarify, for changes in the law that have made our code out of date. So for this year, the proposed code amends, or the proposed ordinance amends Chapter 2, Section 20 regarding personnel. The amendments replace the term department head with department director. That's why you saw so many changes for that one. We also removed some unused definitions and made some other minor clarifications. We also add Chapter 4-18 entitled Transportation Network Company Drivers. So this section is to provide clarity on business license requirements for transportation network drivers. So these would be drivers for Uber, Lyft, Uber Eats, places like that. And this is due to a law that became effective last year. Moving on, we amend Chapter 5-3. This is our animal control ordinance, and the purpose for the amendment is to bring it into compliance with Santa Barbara County's ordinance, which was also just amended recently. Next, we amend Chapter 7, Section 2, to add city-owned property to areas that are limited to 72 hours parking. Right now, it's streets and alleys, but not city-owned property such as parking structures. We also amend Chapter 7-10 to prohibit bicycles on public property with the proper signage. We already have this provision for skateboards, but we don't have it for bicycles, so this is bringing bicycles and skateboards in line. Next, we amend Chapter 8, Section 19 regarding the use of parking structures. This is to correct an error in the minimum width sizes for compact parking spaces. They had accidentally been given the same width as normal parking spaces, so this just gives the correct width for compact spaces. And finally, we add Section 19.06 to Chapter 8. This authorizes towing of vehicles parked overnight in the city parking structures, as well as unlawfully parked vehicles that are blocking lawfully parked vehicles, and vehicles that are preventing access to safety vehicles or equipment. So that's the end of my summary. I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Patrick? None?
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have any correspondence?
No correspondence or requests to speak.
No request to speak. Okay. I'll bring it back to the council for discussion.
I don't have anything to discuss other than to go ahead and approve that the city council introduce for the first reading and continue to the next meeting for second reading and adoption an ordinance amending various sections of the Santa Maria Municipal Code relating to personnel, business license requirements for transportation, network company drivers, vicious dogs, public parking structures, parking on public property, and bicycles on public property.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor to introduce an ordinance for the first reading on the 2019 technical amendments. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Waterfield?
Aye.
Councilmember Moats? Aye. Councilmember Soto?
Aye.
And Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. Now we have another regular business item. Madam Clerk, can you please read the title?
The City Council will confirm appointments to outside boards, committees requiring council representation.
Okay. And the staff report is to be made by City Manager, Mr. Stillwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. So annually, or semi-biannually, the City Council appoints members of the council to outside boards, commissions, and committees requiring City Council representation. Currently, there are 10 boards, commissions, and committees for which the City Council members sit as representatives to the City of Santa Maria. The mayor makes the appointments and the City Council confirms the selection. Of those 10 that currently exist, one staff has determined is no longer needed, and that's the Multi-Jurisdictional Solid Waste Task Force. That group has evolved to what is now called the Santa Barbara County Local Task Force. It's a committee represented by the various jurisdictions in the county, meets 3 or 4 times a year to discuss solid waste-related matters such as regulations, operations, or diversion. And so due to the evolution of the group, staff's determined that it's no longer needed and can be dissolved. So, of the remaining 9 assigned committees, staff has conferred with Mayor Patino about council member assignments. And she has asked the City Council to consider the following assignments, and I can read through them. The first one is the Air Pollution Control District. The current assignment is Councilmember Waterfield, or Patino, and Mayor Patino and Councilmember Waterfield, and the proposed assignment would remain the same with Mayor Patino, Councilmember Waterfield. The Breeze Policy Advisory Committee currently has Councilmember Cordero assigned to it. We propose Councilmember Soto to be assigned to the Breeze Policy Advisory Committee. Central Coast Water Authority has Councilmember Boyson, and alternate is Utilities Director Shad Springer. And the proposal is for Councilmember Cordero, and with the alternate remaining Director Springer. The Community Action Commission is currently assigned to Councilmember Cordero, and that would remain the same. The Downtown Revitalization Committee is currently assigned to Councilmembers Boyson and Waterfield. The proposal is to have the Downtown Revitalization Committee be assigned to Councilmembers Soto and Waterfield. Home for Good is currently assigned to Councilmember Waterfield and Cordero. We propose that remains the same. The Santa Barbara County Association of Government, currently assigned to Mayor Patino and Councilmember Waterfield. We propose that remains the same. The Airport and Council Informational Committee, we currently have assigned to Mayor Patino and Councilmember Moats. The proposal is to have the assignment be to Councilmember Soto and Councilmember Moats. And then the Schools Quarterly Roundtable is currently assigned to Mayor Patino and Councilmember Moats, and we propose that remains the same. And so it's recommended the City Council confirm those appointments to the various outside boards, commissions, and committees which require council representation, and that concludes my report.
I have
Thank
one
you.
question. Should LAFCO be on there?
Oh, that's right.
Separate process, yeah. Now, LAFCO is a separate process
Okay,
that goes
okay.
through SB CAG and goes through a separate LAFCO
Okay.
appointment process.
When do they make that, when do they make that appointment at SB CAG?
I think it's in March.
In March?
You know?
Oh.
Yeah.
For
I'm
for
not-
LAFCO, they make, it runs March, and so it's SB CAG, oh, that's right, it's SB CAG that will make that appointment
appointment.
where you guys will vote on
Okay.
in February.
Oh,
For February, okay.
Yeah, so in February.
okay. Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any correspondence or requests to speak?
No, Madam Mayor, we do not.
Okay, I'll bring this back to the council. For any discussion?
None. If not, I'd like to go ahead and make the motion
Go ahead.
that the city recommend city council confirmation appointments to various outside boards, commissions, and committees which require council representation.
I need a second.
I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second to approve the appointments as presented. No further discussion. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Waterfield.
Aye.
Councilmember Soto.
Aye.
Councilmember Moats. And Madam Mayor Patino.
Aye. The next item will be a report by the city manager, Mr. Stillwell.
Thank you again, Mayor Patino, members of the council. So the next scheduled meeting of the city council is February 5th. However, there's very few items on that agenda, and there is a possibility due to scheduling conflicts that there may not be a quorum. So it's likely we will cancel the February 5th council meeting. If that occurs, the next meeting would be February 19th. There are a few items that are scheduled to come before the council on February 19th. First would be the presentation, the semi-annual presentation for the Home for Good update, which is the update of activities addressing and working to address the issues related to homelessness in the city. We'll also have the second quarter financial report and bring forward for council direction proposed expenditures of the new Measure U 2018. And that concludes my report.
We'll go to oral reports from council members. Dr. Moats?
Yes. On December 9th, I attended the meeting between the City Council and the Airport Board. On December 27th, I attended Gil Trujillo's retirement party. And that was my report.
Thank you. Ms. Waterfield?
Yes, on December 19th, I did the Ben Hayes Post-City Council report. On December 21st, I did a retirement celebration for Stephen Lopez, who is a sergeant with the Santa Maria PD. I also attended December 27th Gil's retirement potluck, and I also attended the retirement of Jim Davis. I met with a constituent on Friday, December the 28th. Thursday, January 3rd, I attended the LAFCO board meeting. And that is it, Madam Mayor.
Ms. Soto?
On Wednesday, January 9th, I attended the 42nd Annual Fire Protection Appreciation Night. That was nice. I enjoyed it.
We went all the way back to December 9th?
It should be December,
Huh. Oh,
December 18th.
December 18th,
Yeah.
okay. Let me get my phone here. December 18th, did the CCRM Christmas Community. And On the December 19th, did the Santa Maria Public Airport meeting. December 20th, APCD board meeting, and went to the La Luz del Mundo Christmas Choir. They have a children's Christmas choir, and they invited me to go over there. December 21st, I didn't do that. On the 27th, went to Gil Trujillo's retirement potluck, and also went out in honor of Jim Davis for his retirement. And on January 2nd, I went over to Merrill Gardens. Arthur Johnson turned 100 years old, and they had a party for him. And on the 3rd of January, did a gender review for SB CAG. January 4th, January 8th. I attended a memorial service for Don Ward, and I really wanted to mention that. Don is a person who has done a lot in the community, lives out in the Orchid area, but started Friends of Waller Park, and has done many things. And I was going to bring the poem with me that he wrote about a trip that he took to Los Angeles and how happy he was to go. He's not from Santa Maria, but he certainly embraced our community and did a lot. And if I find it, I'll bring it next time. January 9th, I attended the North County Sub-Regional meeting in Solvang and the 42nd Annual Fire Protection that evening. And on January 10th, attended the Guadalupe Courtyard groundbreaking out in Guadalupe. On Monday, January 14th. And I guess that's it. Any other things from the dais? Any comments? Dr. Moats?
Correction, the Oak Grove Award was December 19th, not December 9th.
Okay.
It was after the last.
Oh, that's okay.
That's very important.
We did. Okay.
Oh, yeah. We have to reconvene into closed session.
And we have to recess into closed session. Thank you.